You're listening to The Good Life with Frank Duffy and Ray Giudice. We're here tonight at Dantanna's in Buckhead, specifically here at the Buckhead Cigar store right out back of Dantanna's. And this is our fourth show. So I'll tell you what, we're moving right along here, Ray.
Lucky four.
Absolutely.
That was Lou Gehrig's number, by the way.
That's right. And double twos, Little Joe.
That's right.
For Joe DiMaggio in craps. That was named after him.
Interesting.
Little pair of deuces was Little Joe. Now again, we're here with The Good Life, our show that's really focused on themes for guys, things that guys like to talk about: sports, good food, good bourbon, wines. Women, all sorts of entertainment, travel, and it's there to allow people to come in that might not get the good life to join in with us.
You know, Frank, we've got a lot of friends, people we work with, guys, and they're in the world of they've got to raise those kids, and they've got to take them to the bowling league parties, and they've got softball and t-ball, and you know what? They don't get to live the way you and I get to live, and so we're going to share it with them. We're going to share with them the great steakhouses in Atlanta, the great scotches, the great tonight cigars, just great camaraderie amongst professionals. Usually our good buddy, Ted Jenkin from Oxygen Financial is here, and he brings that whole world of finance and how to move money and make money. And you've got, of course, the whole real estate world with you and Rhonda. And I dabble with the law. It's so funny. About 2 weeks ago, thank you, my friend, I entered the 35th year of practicing law. I was sworn into the Georgia bar on June 4th, 1985, and it's been 34, now 35, going on 35 years. And I will say that it's continuous. Yeah. There's been no breaks in the action, no problems with the State Bar of Georgia, just one divorce. And what I would say is kind of a mild drinking problem. It's not bad, I've been arrested because of it.
Acknowledging it is the first step.
Absolutely. You got to make sure you have to know the tiger before the tiger bites you too bad.
Now, again, our good friend Ted Jenkin, who is our preferred guest here on The Good Life, is in Charlotte, North Carolina on business, and I think also doing a little pleasure as Ted is wont to do. I don't think Ted's ever done a business trip without getting into pleasure.
Ted has the mix, so to speak. He brings both a suit and a sport coat to the table.
That's right. Always dapper, always well dressed. And again, we have our good friend Daniel Milana here producing us, and we have Connor Evans with us tonight. And again, this fourth show, it's amazing. This has really kind of moved on very quickly, and we've gotten a great amount of response. You and I both have put it out to our social media, and Ted has put it to his, and we've had many of our friends say how much they're enjoying it.
Well, let's just be clear. Daniel makes us look better than we are, okay? He's like a great tailor, a great makeup artist, a great editor, and he takes this mishmash
and it comes out better on the back
I look
end.
at it like, wait a second,
we're probably
pretty
polished.
good. We're pretty good. Thank you, Daniel.
Now, speaking of, I happened to see you on Court TV last night.
I did. That was my second appearance in the new Court TV.
Yep.
Of course, the old Court TV, driven by my dear friend Nancy Grace, and I don't mind saying that. I did 9 years every Tuesday night and almost every Friday night for 9 years on HLN, and some other legal shows with CNN and HLN and CBS Local. But they've revised, and it's now Vinnie Politan, who's a wonderful guy. And he's a paisan from New Jersey. A great lawyer. He was a former federal prosecutor up there and does a really good job. I mean, we lawyers, the way we talk to each other, it's like, racetrack guys, all the lingo. Yes, a real estate guy. So was on last night for 2.5 hours on a fantastically crazy case.
I saw it. The guy out of Florida, Florida against the nanny murderer.
Nelson, sort of a lifelong loser, so to speak.
Yep.
A guy who actually kidnapped his own father and held him for ransom and then tried to rob a bank using his dad's credentials, did 15 years federal time on that case, and did another 6 years of federal time on an aborted bank robbery, gets out, and is just one of these guys. Look, I can't say that doing 20 years of federal time makes you a happy
The guys that
person.
make your skin crawl when you come
Yeah,
across
this is
them.
that guy.
You don't know what he's done, but when you cross paths with him, you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want
Ugh.
any of my
Ugh.
family getting anywhere near this
Right.
guy.
And just evil.
Yeah.
And he finds he's in Winter Park, Florida, which is a very exclusive area. And he's homeless and he's wandering the streets and he sees this nice woman who's a nanny, taking care of a young family, a divorced father, and he works all day. And he kidnaps her. He
Jeez.
uses her ATM card and he winds up strangling her and stabbing her and dumping her in an open field in Orlando. And he's on trial for capital murder. It's a death penalty case. So of course that raises the whole ante.
That's interesting because you have to have the guilt innocence phase.
That's right.
And then you have to have the death phase.
Death penalty cases are 2-stage trials. Yep. The first is the jury decides guilt or innocence, and then the same jury will then hear the death penalty
because they already
argument.
know all the evidence.
Well, that's right, but also now the defense changes their posture from, hey, he didn't do it, and then the next day it's, well, he did it, but let's explain to you why. He was abused as a child. His mommy didn't love him. He maybe has an IQ of 73, whatever it is.
He didn't do himself any favors by winking back at the victim's family.
Okay, in 35 years of representing clients in courtrooms, we always have let's get ready for court. Here's how to dress. Here's how to stand. Yes, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. Don't stick your tongue out. Don't laugh. Don't smile. Don't tell judge. Right. Don't wink at the homicide victim. Right. So now it could be that he is laying a foundation for the insanity defense. That's right.
Crazy like a fox.
He may be clever by half. Same thing. A little of that. So very interesting. And of course, Vinny is a consummate professional. And one thing I've learned from many TV appearances, radio appearances with 790 The Zone, 680 The Fan, is that the real professionals, whether it be TV or radio, they make us amateurs look great. They know how to lead us, the wink, turn of the head.
Well, you mentioned that when you were on with Buck and John today.
Oh, God.
Giving
Absolutely.
Which I think was a really great move, giving out the driver. It was really awesome for charity, and all the proceeds went to Children's Hospital. And you'd even mentioned that to them. And, all of our friends that are in media, because we have lots of them that are there, you're right. When we go on and speak with them, and we've been guests on there, and we're content for them, they make us look really good.
That's
because we're just a bunch of ham and eggers, right? And they get on there, and our segments fly through. It's like, boy, that was easy. Well, yeah, you had
they made it
Cellini
easy.
running
That's
point, or Steak running point, or John, or so and Matt as well.
And of course, the producers.
Yeah,
we always kudos to Daniel, but Matt Edgar and the others at 680.
Carlos.
Yeah, right. They trim our sails a little bit because they know it, at least initially most folks are deer in the headlights.
They don't let us run with the southerly winds, do they? They kind of rein us in.
They set the barriers.
Well, speaking of being here at Dantanna's, you were a huge advertiser when Matt Chernoff and
my
Nick
goodness,
Cellini
I was on the show.
Had the show.
What
right?
a great show!
How awesome was that here? Right,
it was fantastic, and its demise, unfortunately, because of the whole network going under.
Yep.
But friends of Dave Clapp, who runs Dantanna's and many restaurants, and of course these great guys back here, Mike and Boran, and they're bringing us some fantastic cigars that are just going to pollute us.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to be polluted.
Well, when our waiter comes back up, we'll get I saw you got a drink already.
I was here first.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna have my man get me a cocktail here. But going back to the old Dantanna show, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. Yes, we do a great job of doing social media, and yes, we spend money on doing advertising. But there's just something really about allowing the public to get to see you as the business owner or the professional outside of that realm, right?
Yeah, personalizing it where, look, how many lawyers are there in Metro Atlanta? I'll tell you, there's 25,000, okay?
I can trump you. There's a hell of a lot more real estate
agents.
That's right. Everybody who thinks they can do it is a real estate agent.
And so, you know what? People want to like the person they're working with. They kind of want to know something. They want to have a connection. Yeah, sure. I'm a mostly redheaded Italian New Yorker from the North Bronx who's been here for 40 years. And I put that out there.
Yep.
And I put out what I've done and the things I've gone through, whether it's unloading fish trucks in the Fulton Fish Market in the Lower
Which,
East
by the
Side
way,
of
we
New
have a
York.
segment coming up.
Oh, you're
on,
kidding me?
Yeah, selling and sleeping with the fishes in the New York Harbor.
That's very true. That's very true. That was in 75 and 76 when the mafia ran the wharfs on the Lower East Side.
Hang on, folks. In the second hour, we're going to be getting into some good stories.
So I'll hold back. Yeah, I got them. And but people want to do business with people they like and they trust and they feel a connection with.
Correct.
And that's been my marketing. Look, there's so many good lawyers. There's so many good real estate folks. So many great doctors. It's about, hey, I'm comfortable with you. We speak the same language.
Right.
We have enough connection. I trust you now. Give me
Yeah.
your professional advice. And
Yeah.
now, look, the second part of that equation, you've got to execute.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bringing them in and making the friendship
Yep.
and the relationship. Okay, now you got to do the
only,
job.
If you only list 28,000 houses and don't sell 28,000
right.
houses, you're in deep
and
trouble.
you got to have lots of happy customers.
How you doing, sir? I'm doing great. Would you mind getting me a Woodford Reserve, 3 big ice cubes and a splash of water? And I think we're going to do.
How about our guys?
Yep. You guys want anything? And if you could, if we could order just some, we're gonna probably just do some appetizers tonight. Maybe in about 20 to 25 minutes. Come on back and we'll grab our food order. Thank you, sir. And while the guys are ordering, it's kind of funny, when we were talking about, you being on the show on Dantanna's and doing the radio that we've done. My wife, Ron, and I, we had our Duffy Realty real estate radio show for 6 years. And then you're doing it with 680 The Fan. There's a D-list celebrity that you get out there. And it's kind of funny, when you're out and about. I mean, there's been so many times, even years later. I mean, we haven't done the radio show. It's got to be like 7 or 8 years now. And I still have people not only coming up and going, we know you from your radio show, but they think it's still on. And it's like, we haven't run it in about 7 years.
I agree. You get there's such a critical momentum that goes forward.
Yeah.
By doing these things. And
the residual.
And, I had a conversation with a young lawyer in court yesterday. And I said, what are you doing to let people know what a great service you can provide? Are you speaking at the high school?
Sure.
Are you speaking at church? Give a lecture about whatever, get after church, have 40 people come in the church ante room and, have Cokes and tea and say, listen, here's how you draft a will, or, here's what you need for a power of attorney, or the common things, and let people know from our perspective, from the legal perspective. We lawyers are generally right down there with used car salesmen on the credibility.
Real estate agents, used car salesmen, attorneys,
lawyers, right?
And that's about it.
Sports talk radio, guys. But let people know that's not true.
Yeah.
At least as far as you are, and you're here, and here's my card, and call me, and give out a little free advice, and give out some free consultations. Make an investment. Make an investment.
I mean, no better than you on Court TV. And it was cool. I had my computer up. I was streaming that, and I was watching the Braves. And right about the time that you would come on, I don't know if you guys heard about the almost brawl that happened out in Chicago. And
let's talk about the unwritten rules of baseball.
Well,
you want to do that now?
There we go. I had it here: base brawls, and unwritten rules. And you got to think before this next 3 games of this 4-game series,
someone's getting plunked.
Cubby's getting ear-holed. There's no doubt about it. Because you can't have him just showing up your guy 3 times around. I mean, even it was so fired up. Frenchie was ready to go down from the TV booth and go down and take on this guy. And by the way, I didn't remember, but he had a dust up with him in Frenchie's last year in 2016, right?
I heard that. Well, I watched my first World Series, Tigers Cardinals, the 1968 Cardinals.
68, yeah.
So I go way back. Being a Yankee fan, living just north of Yankee Stadium. But, I'm not one of those guys that hated the Mets. That the 69 Mets, you can't help but love that
Lovable
team.
Losers that went on to win it all.
Right, just, beat a fantastic team in that Baltimore Orioles team. But there are so many unwritten rules of baseball, whether it's you don't steal when you're up 6, 7, 8 runs. You hold up your glove if you're the second baseman, so the guy doesn't have to slide hard if there's no throw.
Correct.
I mean, there's so many of them, but one of them really is amongst the catchers and the umpire. It's a unique relationship.
Absolutely.
These are the people that have the tools of ignorance, as Yogi Berra called them, and they get hit by balls. And have you ever seen an umpire who has he sees the catcher get hit by a ball,
Goes and swipes the
goes out
plate.
and brushes the
Takes a
plate,
long
takes the
time to
time,
do it. Yep.
are you okay, buddy? You ready to get back in? And when an umpire gets hit,
Same thing.
the catcher
Catcher
will go to
wander
home,
around,
go
yeah.
out to the mound, they have a little conversation. So baseball, of course, 162 games. It's a symphony.
The rule books like this, but really all the real unwritten rules would double it.
Are double the
Yep.
rules, right?
It's amazing.
And that's the beauty of baseball. The myth, the things that are between the seams.
Now, do you remember one of your favorite brawls of all times? Can you think back of any
Come
brawls?
on. It's the George Brett Pine Tar.
When he came running out in the Yankee Stadium with that powder blue jersey on, he went ballistic. He went nuts.
And of course, Billy Martin, the Yankees manager at the time, knew.
He just waited.
He was waiting until the
Probably
right
waiting
time.
for days, right? I
Weeks,
can't remember.
Months, years, And of course, Brett, a fantastic Hall of Famer. And by the way, quick aside, our mutual friend Chris Domino, who does the Ray Giudice interview of the week. One of his great interviews was with George Brett.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And at the end of the interview, George Brett goes to Chris, "Hey, man, you really know your stuff," and is a high compliment to Chris Domino.
Teddy Ballgame is also the one that said that to him.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Hey, I've enjoyed talking to you. Yeah.
I'll take a little bit more ice if you wouldn't mind, or some bigger cubes. Thanks. So yeah, absolutely. You're good at what you do when the likes of George Brett and Teddy Ballgame tell you.
That's right.
In fact, his interview with Williams, it was supposed to only go like about a matter of minutes,
Went on
right?
forever.
And every time that Chris would try to wrap it up, Ted Williams like, "No, I can stay and talk a little longer."
In fact, as they did wrap it up, Williams said, "Call anytime."
Yeah, he did.
Call anytime.
And I tell you what, probably this side of Sandy Koufax, he was probably one of the hardest interviews.
He has not gotten Sandy Koufax. That's the holy grail.
Well, nope, nobody's gotten Sandy.
Nobody's gotten
Koufax.
Sandy.
In fact, I'm actually thinking one day down the line, I've got
Should we call him?
Stage play that I want to do calling Finding Koufax, and it's going to be about a group of sports radio stations.
That's
fighting all
fascinating.
over himself, and a comedy. Kind of a New York, a Brooklyn station, a LA.
I might make it a little darker.
And an Atlanta
I think
station.
I would make it darker. I think I would make it a somebody's drive of the life. That's their cause of their life is to get Sandy's. Yeah.
Well, as the interview, as the interview, and maybe they come from Atlanta, and then you get Brooklyn and LA start vying once they hear that it might go off. That was my thought. I think it would be a fun little thing. Well, I remember the brawl that I remember the most was, and I've always been a Braves fan, even in New Orleans, because we didn't have a major league team, and I would watch it on.
What do you mean the Saints?
Well, baseball. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Baseball. And so I'll never forget the time that I was watching. I guess it goes back to like probably the mid 80s. Might have been the early 90s, but when they started getting good. But they had a brawl with San Diego, and it was ugly. And it went, it was one of those brawls that it would flare up and then it would die down. It was like a good campfire, and then all of a sudden it would flare up again and it die down. And I think it was the 80s, because I think Pascal Perez was somewhere in the middle of it. He was
on 285,
he was crazy as a shithouse rat, and so he was involved in it. And I mean, it just went on and on. It was one of the greatest brawls.
They call that a rhubarb back in the day, which I'm not quite sure why a baseball fight is called a rhubarb, but apparently it's red hot is what it's called.
It's kind of funny you were bringing up the Saints. Actually, Ron and I just got back from New Orleans, and it was so cool. We got to go back, and we've got our apartment in the quarter, and I got to meet up with a couple of my good old buddies, guys that I hadn't seen in 30, 35 years, and that's what I wanted to bring up to you. When you go back to the city in New York, right, it's got to be something when you go back, even though you born and raised in Yonkers, but being from New York and having worked so much in New York, it's got to be just an incredible feeling when you head back and just go back home.
There's a couple of things that hit. Number one, the city has changed so much. I mean, it's almost like Disney World now, especially in Manhattan. It's safe. It's clean.
Giuliani.
Yeah, you're right about that. And of course, the great Wall Street ramp up and all the money. When I was growing up in the 70s and early 80s in the city, it was much grittier.
Totally different vibe.
Totally different. I missed that.
42nd Street was raunchy.
The Lower East Side. I mean, there were streets. They were called the ABCs. They weren't worth having names. They were called the ABCs, the Alphabet City. That's what. Now it's New Ho and this Ho and
Yeah.
whatever.
Ho ho.
But of course the difference is, especially when I'm with my squad, as they now say, with my troops, the rhythm. The rhythm changes. My
Yeah.
ex-wife, a wonderful person, would see it in me. She goes, "You're walking faster.
Yeah.
You're talking faster. You're finally thinking a little faster."
And funny, and coincidentally funny, New Orleans is the exact
Oh yeah,
opposite.
slow
I
down.
slow down. It's just kind of, all of a sudden everything's more savored. It's just, I'm like, this was the longest freaking day, but yet the day, when you look up, the day's gone, but it dripped like syrup, but it went by quick. It's the damnedest thing.
Manhattan's like a switchblade. Everything comes out quick. Okay, and it's a snap, snap. Let's go.
Well, and I was going to bring up this next subject. I remember going my first couple of times going to New York. I was guessing my younger 20s, and I was still single at the time. And we used to go hang out at some of the best bars in New York. And I can remember going to McSorley's pub. Oh my gosh! And I remember I offended whoever was the bartender, whoever the manager was that night. And I was in the bar business, right? I had bars at LSU, so I go up there and I'm thinking I'm going to order this, that, or the other. And I was like, "What kind of beers do you have?" He goes, "Light or dark." And I'm like, "Excuse me, what? Huh? What light? What dark?" He goes, "No, light or dark." And they had two beers, McSorley Light and McSorley's Dark. And if you were drinking liquor, it better be hard and it better not be mixed with anything.
No, there was no torch. There was no ice machine, smoke. It's one of the things. I'm a Scotch drinker. I like it straight with just a little ice, just as a speed breaker. But you go to these clubs in Atlanta, these bars in Atlanta. Now, now the whole bartending thing is,
Oh yeah,
it's over
Schmaltzy.
the top, and there's
Yep.
they're burning wood and making smoke, and I'm like, no,
When
take
the hell
the
did we get into macrame?
I need three things: a glass, a piece of ice, and for you to pour that bottle into it. And chop, chop, let's go.
When I first moved here, this is a true story. I had a bar at LSU, and I was thinking about opening up a bar in Atlanta, right? And so I was looking to find a place on Peachtree. And if you remember, this is 1987.
Okay,
It
so
was,
McSorley's.
oh well, you had McNeely's.
McNeely's, thank you.
McNeely's,
Right.
Clarence Foster's across the street.
Right.
The Treehouse was further up.
Cafe Intermezzo.
Oh yeah.
Come on, I
and
know all
then
this.
coming all the way up, you had just Steam House.
Confettis.
Oh man, it
Dude,
was
I
just
was
this
here.
great bar scene. But the place that I wanted to get was back when they had Tongue and Groove, Cafe Two to Tango. They had
The flower pot place. What was that?
I know the one you're talking
know what I
about.
mean, yeah.
Oh my gosh, there was
Good old days.
That's right, good old days.
Bingo.
Tux, Tavern, Dixie Tavern, Tux, Ducks. What was that one on the corner? It'll come to me. But the place that I decided to work was a place called East Village Grill.
Yeah.
Remember they had the Raccoon Lodge right above it, right? And so this place was just ground zero. So I was like, okay, the best thing for me to do if I want to try and put a place here is work here,
Learn
be
to
a
coach.
bartender,
Yeah.
figure out what's where,
Yeah.
See where the
Lay of
traffic
the land.
is, right? So my goal was I was thinking about putting in, there was a little like a dress shop right across the street, a little bitty tiny place, but that's the beauty of the bar business. It's cash business. It's a profitable business. You don't need a lot of revenue as long as you keep your expenses down, and your footprint was the thing. And so I was looking to put in a piano bar right there, right across from East Village Grill. And what was amazing to me in the 80s is that I'll never forget one night I worked a beer bar up top. Again, a chimpanzee can work a beer bar. I was up on a beer bar up on the top roof. Remember
Is that the
top
same
roof?
as a chimpanzee? Is it the same critter?
A monkey. So I'm up there. I'm working a beer bar, and when I tell you, I sold so many beers this night. The place was so freaking packed. 80s, go Atlanta, 6-1 girls to guys. I made $365 in tips, and all of them were quarters. I walked out of it. If I'd have walked into the lake, I'd have drowned. I had that many quarters.
Funny.
Can you imagine that? So there was just such a bar scene that was here, right?
It's unbelievable.
And so I think of Atlanta, and then going back to my days, when I was at LSU, it was a fun thing to do. So we were talking about earlier, we were talking the levels of attorney, real estate agent, used car salesman. Well, one of the other things that everybody thinks that they can do in life is own a bar.
Yeah.
Anybody that's sat on the other side and had cocktails,
This is
think they
easy.
run it. It's one of the hardest things in the world to run. In fact, it's kind of funny. Rhonda keeps to this day, she's romanticized about it. Well, maybe we ought to get back and do the bar business. I was like, Rhonda, listen, whatever it is that you want to put into that, give me the money. We'll burn half of it. We'll go outside and have a ceremonial burning, and I'm going to put another half
Treasury
in the
bills.
dictionary where I sneak and put all my Las Vegas money. We're going to put it right in there, and then that way I'll have that for all my next trips.
Well, what's the
it's a
failure
waste
rate
of
of
time.
bars and restaurants in the first year? 85, 90%?
Higher than that, 95%.
You know,
Yeah.
If you want to buy used bar and restaurant equipment,
Oh gosh,
2 cents on the dollar.
absolutely right. And I'll tell you, especially for a college campus bar, because I used to joke, the same reason that the new bar comes in and is favorable is the same reason why it's going to go out of business 6 months later, because the new place is going to come in and take it. It's
right.
unbelievable. But going back to again New York and the New York bars, I remember when we would me and a buddy of mine, actually we were both in American Express at the time. We would travel on weekends. Our territory was West Virginia, and so there was nothing to do in West Virginia.
Really?
One weekend we went
I've
out to
never
West
heard that.
Virginia, and because we had a little bit going on, it was so popular that but we ruined the entire pool in just one weekend. So like we were done. So we still got to get out of town. So we would go to places like Atlantic City, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, and we would go to some like the baseball cities and catch the whole weekend series because we were single at the time. So we'd go to the baseball in the day and then go out at night, right? So, but one of the funnest times we would go into the city. And I'm telling
When
you
you say
what,
the city,
New York City,
all right, there we go.
48 hours of some of the funnest times, and I think we slept like about 2 or 3 hours. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, it was. I mean, and it was just something. Right, this was like 88, 89, somewhere in that range. Oh man, one of the funnest times. And some of the bars in there were just, I mean, they were hardcore. New Orleans bars, you got to sweep people out at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're really just revving up in New York at about 6 o'clock. I mean, they can go to 8 o'clock now.
And you better bring your A game.
Oh yeah,
That's how we are. Bring your A game.
Ain't no doubt. Well, now speaking of A games, we're gonna have our food order coming up in a second. We were talking the last time we were out. We were having steaks, and again, normally when you're having steaks, you want to have a good Cabernet, you want to have a good red wine and stuff. Don't you hate the schmuck that sits there and is like the wine connoisseur, the wine asshole? I mean, we were joking last time, and it was funny. We were sitting there and we were ordering wine, and you were like, "Okay, that looks good. That looks pretty good." Don't you hate when you go and you're with like the 4 couples, and the one pretentious prick that has no money in his pocket whatsoever is going to be like wine, the sommelier?
Absolutely. And
like,
here's
what the hell, man?
here's the other thing. It's you're getting 2-3 bottles if you've got a couple couples. And once you start getting to $1.25, $1.50 a bottle, it's actually real money.
That's right. That's right.
And I will say that I think there's really good wine. But then the next bunch of wine, it doesn't change the equation at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And but even more so is the guy who really doesn't know much. It's just pretentious.
Yeah.
But he wants to take
It's
over.
just
He
for
wants to
show.
take over. Right. He wants to take over. He took a class and, somebody suckered him into something. Yeah. That would be a schmuck. That's exactly what a schmuck would be. So let's get a bunch of appetizers here, Frankie, for the table. I've been here many times. The Cajun egg rolls are fantastic. Let's get an order of those. Anybody see anything else? How about the sesame steak skewers?
That'll work.
Let's get 2 orders of those because these young cats look hungry.
Yeah.
And they need meat.
That's right. And let's do. Come
on, Frank, pull the trigger.
Let's do the calamari.
There you go. How about 1 order of the house fries too, just for a little carbs? We'll split them up. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it. And again, we're here at Dantanna's in Buckhead, place that we've been a lot. A lot of the 680 The Fan parties have been at Dantanna's. In fact, we had I guess it was. It's my one story I get to tell on Jay Cunningham. Jay and I were out at a TGIF at 680 put on back the year that the Hawks were having a good run. And Jay and I were over cocktails. He goes, it's fool's gold. They're not going anywhere. I said, okay. I said, I'll bet you that they go to the Eastern Finals. He goes, no way. There's no way they're going to do that. So he goes, "What do you want to bet?" And so Jay goes, $500. And Rhonda over my shoulder goes, "Wow, what are you, $500? Make it 1,000." So I was like, "Well, I like that. That's very good." So she shamed Jay in betting $1,000. Well, the Hawks went on to go to the Eastern Finals. Now, mind you, they didn't win another game after that. I won exactly the amount of number
Yeah,
of
you won the
games
bet.
I needed to win the bet, and it was so funny. But the best part about it is, and Jay's a great friend, and we do a lot of stuff. In fact, I was just talking to him about real estate a couple days ago, and it was so funny. So when he just invited us to go to another one of the baseball games that he has coming up. He always has these different things. But the best thing was I got to collect my bet. The first time that I saw him, we were actually in the suite for 680, and he and Evander walked in. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "This is the best. This is the best crowd to have assembled to get paid." And he cracked me off those 10 100s. I was like,
man.
that was the best feeling
In
in the
front of the
world.
champ.
Oh, out in front of the champ
as a
man.
witness.
Now I was afraid. I thought the champ might have.
No, the champ's a good man.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny you should mention that. I've hung out now with Evander, I guess 3 or 4
You could
times.
not ask for a nicer person.
The salt of the earth guy, and I'll tell you how cool he is. When we're talking about different subjects, on every one of the times that I've been with him, he has brought up how cool his mom is.
Yeah.
It's almost on every way. He was talking about how he was a young boxer and how she helped him get started and how she gave him I even told him one time, I said, champ, I said, I've been hanging around you socially. I said, you meet 50 guys every time that Jay has the suite going on, so you probably don't remember me. But I have to tell you, every time that I've been here, every time you've spoke at some point in time, the conversation has come up about how much of a good inspiration, how good of a factor your mom was in your life. And he was like, "Oh yeah," he goes, "Well, because she was just a cool guy, salt of the earth guy." And he must get so tired of people taking pictures with him, because I'm telling you what, the line Jay has us up on that balcony. He's got that penthouse over in the Battery, and there must be, I don't know, 75 of us freeloaders over there going in on Jay's.
I've been there.
On his his big suite and everything. And Evander takes pictures with every person that's up there.
He's gracious. Awesome. He's a super guy.
He really is.
And from my perspective as a lawyer that does criminal defense work, that kind of knows what athletes get and high profile people get in trouble in Atlanta, it ain't him.
Never him.
Never.
He is
salt of the earth, rock solid. And I'll just make a quick aside. The other guy who's kind of now, he's one of ours here in Atlanta, Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, great guy.
Super guy. Lived in my condo building over by Phipps for a couple of years. Could not have been a better neighbor, friendly to everybody in the building. The biggest human being you will ever meet. Lean. Well, it's like a sequoia. What are the bigger ones? The redwoods or the sequoias?
Probably the redwoods.
I think it's the redwoods.
Yeah.
He's like a redwood.
Yeah.
Well, straight up.
Well, let me tell you, it's so funny. I actually met Shaq when he was at LSU. This was his first year.
Wow.
He just got to
Baby
LSU.
Shaq, 19.
And he was skinny. If you ever go back and look at some of the pictures, he was a beanpole. He was, when he first got to LSU, it took that big training table and all those weights, to build Shaq, right? And so it was so funny. He and I shared a very good friend, a fraternity brother of mine, and it was funny. Our buddy Hugh would happen to be down there, and I was just walking past. "Hey, Hugh, what you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm hanging out waiting for Shaq to come off the court." So Shaq comes off. It's like halftime of they're playing McNeese State or some directional school or whatever. And it was so funny. So when he comes off,
you mean the Sisters of Mercy?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's the tune-up game. And when he comes off, I got introduced to him. And when I shook his hand,
oh my God!
And I was at the time, I was like 28, 29. I was long out of college, right? I just happened to be up in Baton Rouge, went to the game. And when I shook Shaq's hand, I swear to you, it kind of came up here to like a forearm. I was like, "Big fella, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Do it right."
Well, a quick story. While he was living in our building, where it's a 25-story condo building, and at the time I had really one of the greatest dogs I've ever had, a male standard poodle named Teddy. 60 pounds, a real dog. If you guys knock standard poodles, you don't know what you're talking
Poodles
about.
Are tough as a
And so I walk in the elevator for the first time with Teddy, and there's Shaq. And the dog looks straight up, and I could see the look on his face, which was like, Daddy,
Yeah.
what is that? There
Get me
can't-
out of here.
No, he wasn't scared. But Teddy and Shaq is like, what's his name?
Yeah.
I said Teddy. He goes, oh, Teddy, Betty, Teddy, and then the dog is like curling. I mean, they were in love, and you're talking about one of the super
Yeah.
nice human beings, and to him, and God bless all his success.
Yeah.
Whether it's Gold
He-
Bond
he-
or the
He is the endorser
yep.
extraordinaire.
I think he
man.
owns like every Krispy Kreme in Metro Atlanta now,
Well, he does, and
which is crack.
and
He's a crack dealer.
And you know what he just did? You know what he just did? He just got all these Papa Johns.
Yep,
Because
he's
now
so
he's
smart.
the new the spokesman.
Right, he took that over. Yeah,
But I'll tell you what, the smartest thing he probably ever did endorsement wise is he got in on the ground floor of the Ring
Yes.
doorbells.
yes,
I'm telling you, whatever he does, it
he
strikes
touches
gold.
it's gold.
And of course we know that him, Rob Jenners, our good friend, is
Yeah.
a production manager over at 680, and John Kincaid, a good friend of ours. They do their podcast, the big Shaq podcast, right? But Shaq goes back to I was good friends with Dale Brown's daughter,
Oh,
Robin.
wow.
And then of course Daddy Dale was like a second dad to Shaq.
Yes.
Him and of course his stepdad Sarge. They called him Sarge, his father who was in the army. That's how Dale Brown found Shaq. Dale Brown was over in Germany speaking to the troops, and he looked at this young man that was dunking the ball in the gymnasium on base. And he walked over to him. He goes, soldier. He goes, what outfit are you in? And he goes, I'm not a soldier. He goes,
I'm in the
"Who
10th
are you?"
grade.
He goes, I'm 12 years old. And he goes, hang on, wait right here. Where's your dad at? Hang on a second. That's how he recruited
That's
Shaquille
funny.
to come to LSU. He
Dale
recruited him
Brown, wow.
as a 12-year-old. Speaking of famous guys that we know now that hit the big time, how about our buddy Ty Graffinini? Graf winds up getting named the Pelicans
Yeah,
play-by-play guy.
Right.
I mean, what an incredible fraternity to be in. There's only 32 NBA teams, 31, 30
well, first of
NBA
all,
teams.
Graf has got the right amount of vowels in his last name. Okay, let's just say he's a paisan.
He's
He's
an
got
New
all
Orleans
of them.
Italian. There's no doubt,
He's
man.
all wop.
I was joking with him. I'm like, how do you do all the play-by-play? Where do
With
your
your hands,
go?
where do your hands go? Right. I have watched some of the video stuff that I do.
Uh-huh.
And I look at myself, I'm like, I'm doing it now. It's like, what's with the hands? What's the issue here?
Well,
We just can't help ourselves.
a big big congratulations out to him. In
Yeah.
fact, I think we're going to have a big celebration for him when the Pelicans come up to play the
Oh,
Hawks.
that'd be great. Let's do
The
something.
night before, I was thinking we should take him out for a nice steak dinner. Get all the on-air 680 folks because they all like him. Of course,
Oh yeah,
Steak's an
Stakey's
old
a good
buddy of
buddy.
him.
Sure,
Sandra, Finn, they went and played craps in Tampa one time.
let's do it.
They had.
Why don't you and I host it?
yeah,
We'll invite everybody.
yeah.
You know what? Let's do it. Davio's,
Yeah, that'd be
a
awesome.
Northern Italian steakhouse
that'd
right
be
here
awesome.
in Buckhead.
That's perfect.
It's a nice combo. We'll get that back
Yeah.
room.
Let's do that. Because he's been on Chuck and Turnoff numerous times.
He's fantastic.
John knows him real well. And so let's do that.
You and I sponsor it.
Yeah,
and we'll
let's
get
do
Teddy in there.
That would be awesome.
They're beautiful.
That'd be great. All right. Well, we've come to the point of the show where I would like to kind of take a first break. And while we're getting played out by our music, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Ray, and I'd like to ask you guys out there in the audience, if you were able to hit the lottery or win something, win a prize, a radio station, 680 broke out the crowbar and opened up the vault, and you were able to get 2 primo tickets for life to the following sporting events, which would it be? Would it be for the Super Bowl? Would it be for NBA Finals games each year? Or would it be for every game of the World Series? Come on back and we'll find out your answer, and we'll find out Ray's answer in a moment. You're listening to The Good Life with Frank Duffy and Ray Giudice. Thinking of buying or selling your present home? With inventory low but interest rates continuing to rise, you can't afford to wait, and you can't afford to overpay an old-fashioned agent a ridiculous 6 or 7% of your money. Frank Duffy here, and so is spring. The perfect time to call my wife, the real estate powerhouse, the documented #1 agent for home sales in America over the last 5 years, Rhonda Duffy, and our team at Duffy Realty of Atlanta. Rhonda's close-knit group of experts by specialty do it all with our trademark Duffy Secret Marketing Formula to get you paid top dollar. With Duffy selling flexibility, you call the shots to sell at your price, on your terms, or take it off the market. And Rhonda's $500 flat fee listing program won't waste your family's money. We guarantee it. 27,000 other Atlantans over 17 years will all testify. Rhonda is your next best move in real estate. Duffy Realty, because money matters. You're listening to The Good Life with Ray Giudice and Frank Duffy. We're here at Dantanna's in Buckhead. We're here at the Buckhead Cigar Store. And again, enjoying our food and our drinks. We're down here, again, with a nice bourbon, nice scotch. Chin Chin, brother.
Salute.
Another great night here in the city of Atlanta. We've got our food getting ready to come on in. And, we were talking a little earlier about, memorable baseball games, brawls, the unwritten rules. Can you remember growing up any games that you actually attended in person, and what stuck out after all these years, 50 years later, about that particular game?
Well, I was very lucky growing up very near old Yankee Stadium. In other words, the original house that Ruth built before it was even refurbished in '76, let alone tragically torn down.
Crazy.
And, it's just unbelievable. But and gone to many games there. Now, of course, those were the awful Yankees in the late '60s, early '70s, post Mantle.
Post Whitey Ford.
Yeah, we're talking Mel Stottlemyre was a pretty good player, and Jake Gibbs, Pepitone, and Horace Clark, and Gene Michael. But they were terrible, partly because there was a phenomenal team in their league called the Baltimore Orioles that just beat the snot out of my Yankees. And I cry myself to sleep, as Bobby Mercer would strike out in the bottom of the ninth. So I was so lucky to go to the old Yankee Stadium and see pinstripes and do that. But there weren't really many important games played back then because the Yankees just weren't in the playoffs. They weren't in the mix. And, of course, that was in the two-division post '69.
Yeah, there were no wild cards.
There were no third division. Right. The East had a winner and the West had a winner, and they played in one 7-game series, and then they went to the World Series. And prior to '69, it was just one division.
Correct.
So there wasn't a whole lot of chances of seeing any October baseball back then. I was very fortunate to see some really good players that came to visit the Yankees. I happened to got lucky to see Carl Yastrzemski.
Oh, yeah.
Al Kaline. Of course, all the Orioles, Boog Powell and Frank Robinson and Blair, and just some great guys. McNally, Palmer, Cuellar, Dobson, the great pitching staff. And really, the Orioles were just a team until the early '70s when the Oakland A's were just a team that was.
Oh my gosh!
With great pitchers, Blue Moon Odom and Vida Blue and Catfish Hunter and Gene Tennant's. I mean, just great players. Sal Bando, I think, was on the team. But great games, Eckersley, great experiences sitting in the cheap seats at Yankee Stadium. Happy to have a dog and a Coca-Cola. And as a kid, big games. Not really until I moved to Atlanta. Yeah. Till I saw so many Braves playoff games.
We kind of got
spoiled. We got used to postseason baseball. Yeah.
I used to tell everybody that wanted to listen, I was like, you're watching the best pitching staff. At least again, you would have to compare it to the Orioles staff of the '60s,
or the Dodgers of the '60s.
Drysdale
and Sutton and Koufax and
Claude Osteen.
And
you said Don Sutton. That was just a special time coming out to the games, and especially after getting here in the late '80s and watching some of those horrible teams where Ted Turner was down there in the
powder blue.
He was hanging out down managing the team.
I was like, Nakahoma.
Yeah, it was ugly. I think of my growing up, of course, as I mentioned, we had no MLB team. We had the Saints, right? But we didn't have many really good games. Thank you. We didn't have really good games, but I had memorable games, and it wasn't so much the actual game itself. Even though I did watch
It's experience.
Archie Manning's first NFL game as a quarterback when he beat the fearsome foursome, the Rams, going over on the 1 yard line as time ran out in old Tulane Stadium. I remember sitting on the other
Danny
side.
Abramowitz catch a ball? in that game?
Well, Abramowitz caught many balls leading up
He
to
was a
that
hell of a receiver.
that dive. But I can just envision the very first time I walked into old Tulane Stadium in one of the Saints games, and I sat there, and it was a night game, and it was a preseason game. It was against the Browns, right, of all teams. But I remember walking out of that upper deck of the north end zone and just seeing that green grass, and it was kind of had like a little rain mist in the air, and it was just glistening in the lights. And ever since that time, I was hooked on sports. I was like, oh my God, look at this thing. This is like this is as good as the Gladiators. This is as good as it gets, right?
I remember walking to Yankee Stadium as a kid. Of course, at that time, it held 73,000 people.
Yeah, it was monstrous. It was mammoth.
And it was rarely filled back in those days, but it was just so big. And the grass was so green.
Mm-hmm.
Big foul territory
Yeah.
back in the day. When we talk about why
Yogi looked like a dot back there. It was so big from the stands.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We talk about why batting averages are up so high. Well, part of it is there used to be a lot of foul balls that were caught for outs.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, I don't think it's all of it, but it's part of it. Excuse me. The other experience I can tell you, thank you, Daniel. I was lucky enough to see Knicks games and Rangers games in Madison Square Garden. And they always had the house lights dark so that the stage or the rink or the court was bright.
Yep.
And of course, in New York, the home colors are whites. New York Knicks whites, and the Rangers had their blue. That was not the Statue of Liberty sweater. It was the Rangers or NY across the front. And the Garden is just a great place to see a game.
Yep.
The house announcer's name was John Condon. He had a very distinctive voice, a very New Yorker type voice, and I can still hear that ringing in my ears.
Well, I remember watching them back in the the early '70s. Some of those teams, DeBusschere, Willis Reed, Clyde Frazier. I mean, just fun teams to watch, man. The Garden was happening back then. It really was.
Earl Monroe, Bill Bradley, Dave Barnett, Cassie Russell, Dave Stallworth. There was a great 30 for 30, and they're so well done. Most of them are just fantastic. And it's called When the Garden Was Eden.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
In the Garden of Eden. And it traces the New York Knicks from about 68, because they went deep in the playoffs in 68. Win in 69-70, beat a Lakers team of Wilt Chamberlain,
Jerry West,
Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich. I mean, these are Hall of Fame players. They
set up a great rivalry. Really,
the Knicks, the Lakers beat them the next year, and then in 73-70 they win again.
Correct.
Willis is out, and Jerry Lucas is the center.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Who is actually a professional magician, a very fascinating guy, and Jackson was on both of those teams.
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson.
Well, and it's kind of funny. That's a great segue, because you're talking about him being a magician. You know what else was great in the Garden? Music. Music was fantastic. Sinatra did a killer freaking concert, kind of on his return, on his, after his first retirement, right? He came back, played the Garden in the round. Can you believe that? Just sat out there with a microphone and a stool.
In 1976, I was 18 years old. I saw Elton John on the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour.
I bet that was an awesame.
It was
concert.
awesome.
Yeah, I bet.
Before he, Lion King. Okay. He played Rock and Roll Kids, believe it or not.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Benny and the Jets.
Yep, it's fantastic.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so geeked. I'm going in 2 weeks to go see the Stones in New Orleans. They're playing the Superdome, and I'm telling you, I am so fired up. I last saw them 25 years ago when they came and played the Superdome as well, and they were supposed to play a jazz fest, which Ron and I were going to go to, and then we wound up not being able to go into the apartment. And they wound up canceling because Mick had that heart issue, right? So then they got that all fixed. He's feeling better, so they put tickets back on. And you're talking about being, the good life. My American Express card got me access to the first tickets.
Wow.
So that's how I was able to get tickets and jump the line, right?
Quick political question.
Yeah.
Mick Jagger is a British citizen, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
They have the National Institute of Health, Socialized Medicine.
Mhm.
So, but when he had his heart procedure, it's interesting that he went to NYU
That's
Medical
right.
in New York. He didn't go back to. He paid
Didn't go for the
cash.
socialized medicine. You're right.
I just
absolutely.
find that fascinating. Could have went to any. Stood in line anywhere in
I
England.
want a doctor with his last name ending in Steen.
Bergstein, Steen, and I'm prepared to pay.
His mama didn't raise no fool.
That is fascinating to me, isn't it? But we don't do politics here.
No, we don't. We stay out of that fray. We stay
Stay out of
above
that.
that fray, actually. Well, let me ask you a question. What other groups did you see growing up that made an impression?
I saw Doobie Brothers for about $3
Man.
at
How
the University of
freaking
Pennsylvania,
awesome.
1975, in a blizzard.
China Grove, man. They played some great music. I love the Doobies.
But to me, the most important concert I ever saw, Talking Heads, 1982, here at the Fox, on the Stop Making Sense tour, which is probably the greatest concert video. Oh, wow, look at this. How old are you? Tell me,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
how old are you?
I'm 20.
As a 20-year-old guy, is aware of the greatest concert video movie made, and Jonathan Demme is the producer in
Silence of the
1982.
Lambs. Yep.
Silence of the Lambs, and he did that TV show. It was kind of scary. The sci-fi thing. It'll come to us.
Not Twin Peaks, huh?
Twin Peaks. He's
Yep.
Twin Peaks, right?
Yeah.
He did. Or did he just do the two?
And it's just fantastic. And so I'm like, wow, this is different music. This is kind of punk, kind of grunge, kind of everything. And big talking. David Byrne, he's an interesting guy. He's a little bit of a difficult human being, but he's brilliant.
Well, of all the great groups that I saw, and I saw great concerts, being in the bar business, I had access to great tickets. I'm gonna shock you to what I thought was one of the funnest concerts that I've ever seen. You're gonna think I'm nuts. Little River Band.
Oh,
I swear to God, we saw them at the Warehouse in the late '70s. I had the right girlfriend at the time. She got into it, and I tell you, I can still see sitting back up on where it was a thing called the Warehouse, and it was this big, huge, cavernous. I mean, it was a warehouse, is what it was, and they would have the bands come in, and you literally could hang out on like the walls, but it was like this one big open area where everybody just hung out. And I'm telling you what, those sappy bastards, the songs that they did, that was such a deal closing thing.
but the thing is that when you go out and you see live music at any level, almost, you say to yourself, wow, that person, that group, they're really talented.
Yeah.
They can do something I can't do. They can read music. They can, make in 3 minutes and 47 seconds something emotional happen, or raise something in you, whether it's energy or clapping your hands or snapping your fingers. Very similar. A very good guy and a great lawyer, Jamie Brendel, owns the Punchline here comedy show here in Atlanta. It's next to, remind me, Daniel, of the name of the restaurant. It's the Empire Diner, right?
No, it's the oh man, now I'm blanking because
Okay.
I'm there every week. Landmark Diner.
Landmark Diner, thank you, here in
Landmark,
Buckhead.
yeah.
And Jamie is a lawyer, a great lawyer. He does stand-up, as does our friend Daniel here.
Yep.
And
at the Punchline.
at the Punchline, and I go there and I'm like, you don't know what to expect, but every time I see it, okay, some shows are better than others, and some folks have a more developed routine.
Yeah.
But to stand up there and completely expose yourself, because it's a complete hit or miss.
Oh yeah.
Nobody
There ain't no in between.
There ain't no in between.
Nobody hits singles. you're either
There's
hitting
no
home run or you're
bunts. There's no walks. There's no shag flies. You're either making them laugh or you're losing.
Isn't that the truth?
And once you get on the losing roll, it's hard to bring it back, right?
And I will say, sorry to interject.
No.
It's fine.
It's very immediate too.
Oh yeah.
There's not really a lot of times where you can come back.
The
If you don't
pain's
start
quick.
off strong, they
Yep.
know exactly who you are. They know that you're not that good. They know you're
And they're
new,
just waiting for you to wrap it up.
and you can use the best material they've heard all night about 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
But those first 4 minutes were terrible. There's no coming back. Even
Well-
the first minute, there's no coming back.
And you know what's really cool? It is such a cool marriage between the comedians and the bar room, right? I mean, it's you can go into one place and have a totally different vibe than some other bar room. I mean, you get the the bums in there heckling you, or if you got a cool crowd that's come in, I mean, your material probably goes a little bit better.
Yeah. The people heckling, if you know how to handle hecklers,
Oh, they can be your
You
best,
can turn
best
it,
buddies.
right?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
your best material.
Well, that's the old saying. The opposite of love is not hate; it's apathy. If you've got somebody that's giving it back to you, you can. It's like judo. You can throw that around all day long.
Some of the best comedians actually have nothing but heckler jokes.
Yeah.
Like they'll just be able to respond. And I know of one, it's a British comedian named Jimmy Carr. And
Okay.
he'll take a good 10-minute chunk of his set if he's doing an hour-long show special or whatever. He'll take about 10 to 15 minutes to say, "Okay, heckle me," because he has every
Yeah.
response you could possibly have.
You know who else was great at that? Of course, Rickles.
Oh,
Rickles
yeah.
was the king of doing it. I mean, you might not even been heckling him, and you were going to catch
He's
it.
bringing you in. Now, one of the things that I do, aside from all my other eccentric habits, is usually on Friday nights. I kind of keep Friday nights easy. It's been a hard week, and I start YouTubing. I go down the YouTube wormhole,
Mm-hmm.
but almost inevitably, I wind up with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
And you talk about a pro, a guy who honed his act on the road. You got 9 people, Rodney would do it. And when you saw him on Carson, and once in a while something didn't work, he'd say to Johnny, "Hey, I'm working it, I'm working it out. I'm just working. I'm walking this around to see." And they were pros and they knew what they were doing. But to watch Rodney work the crowd and feel the rhythm for 12 minutes, right?
And then towards the end of the career, he used to come out in a robe. That was
Yeah.
all. He would just be in a
yeah,
robe.
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
last-
His
entire set.
his smoking jacket robe. He would cut. That's what all he would do.
And what I heard was at his place, Dangerfield's in New York, if you were starting, he'd give you 8 minutes at the end of the show and a plate of spaghetti.
Good
There might
luck,
be
kid.
Here it is, kid. But he
Good
helped
luck.
young comedians.
Mhm.
And many of the Seinfeld, a lot of these guys have said, Rodney, when I needed him, he was always there for me. What a great tribute.
One YouTube I saw Rodney. It was like a 12-minute riff on the Tonight Show. 2 minutes was on stage. 9 minutes was sitting
chair.
down,
Ah.
and Doris Day punched him like 5 times sitting next to him. Every time he would say something, and once he found it, "Hey, look over here, America's sweetheart."
And she just passed
Excellent.
away.
I know. A couple
Beautiful
weeks ago.
woman, a great actress, and an animal lover.
Yeah,
Huge
big
animal lover.
ASPCA. We're talking about going to concerts. One of the funniest ones that I can remember is I went and actually worked security for a Jimmy Buffett concert down in Hilton Head. And I swear I was the tiredest I've ever been. I mean, I was there at like 2:00 in the morning, but we had like two sides of the whole crowd. And so I was working one side, my buddy was working the other side, and I got this because there was this girl I was trying to get with down in South Carolina when I was living there, when I was with Discover at the time. And she goes, "Okay, well, I'm gonna give you guys the plum assignments. Y'all have to keep all the crowds in line. If to get in line, you got to get them to sit down." Well, so I was actually following the course, and I look over at my buddy about 15, 20 minutes to the concert. It looks like a jailbreak on his side. There's anarchy going on. He's not looking at anything. And so after the concert, he could have cared less. I must have got about $300 in tips from all the people in like the first 5 or 6 rows thanking me that our side didn't look like his side. But it was the weirdest thing. It was like, okay, I think I'm going to work this. But it was kind of like going and working the crowd in the suite at 680 and talking business. It's like you look up and you've only seen 3 plays of the game. I was like, I don't want to do this. This is not good.
Well, speaking of which, let's have a quick flashback to the Kentucky Derby of this year.
Yeah.
Where Goodness gracious.
Our
Oh,
buddies.
man, what a blur. 4 days. But a great guy, Charles, remember, who was our
Oh, yeah,
literally our bartender.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so we're there.
It's hard to call a vendor a bartender, but he was.
And about mid-morning Thursday, the Thurby.
Yep.
He figured it out. He's an older gentleman
Yep.
who once a year works the Derby. I think he lived in Memphis and
Yep.
had a business. And he has a daughter who's a lawyer here
Correct.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he realized he had 6 drunkards.
You say that with love and respect.
Yes, drunkards. It's a romantic word, Frank. And that were prepared to tip.
Yeah.
He sized
yeah.
this up. He
Yeah.
profiled this. He did.
He wasn't a fool.
And remember what he said? He said, "Gentlemen, you don't buy no drinks from nobody else. I'm your guy. I will take care of you."
Wherever you are, I will find
And
you.
for the next 3 days, I think he paid off his mortgage. I do think that he is high and dry. He's got the clear deed, and it was lovely.
A great guy.
It was
and
what a fantastic
what an
guy.
awesome trip.
And he took care of us.
He did.
I mean, we felt safe.
He absolutely did. Well, I was going to say we were going to break for dinner, but I think that got snapped up pretty quick.
Yep.
We had some hungry folks here at the table, but we're gonna break just for a second, finish off this food, and we'll come right back. I've got a trivia question for you.
All right.
Speaking of dinner, now I know that you like this movie. This is in our repertoire, right? What was the restaurant's name where Michael clipped Salazzo and the police chief
You got me.
in number 1? And Godfather
I'll
1.
start thinking.
I'll be thinking about it, and again, we'll be back, and I'll tell you what
That's
that
where
answer
the
is.
gun was on the toilet.
Gun was up on the toilet. Taped up there.
Oh.
I don't want Mikey coming out there with anything else in his hand other than his click. All right, we'll be coming on back to The Good Life again with Ray Giudice and Frank Duffy.
You've built a name for yourself. So has he. You know the best in your profession. So does he. Ray Giudice, 30 years in practice, Emory Law. From divorce to contract law and, DUI, he can put that legal team together for you. 404-964-4185.
Welcome back to The Good Life. This is Frank Duffy. I'm here with my co-host, Ray Giudice of Giudice Law. And we're here at the wonderful Dantanna's in Buckhead. I can't tell you how many times we've been in this place probably in the last 10 years. It's a great place right down here, right down from our friends at the Palm. This is such a great little alcove. And right now we're here at the Buckhead Cigar Store, and I highly recommend it. You know you've hit the spot when you see the wooden Indian up by the front door. And it's just a great place to come and relax and have some drinks, have some nice appetizers, which we just had, and have a good cigar. In fact, I see they were so kind to give us a nice sample pack, and I got this beautiful Davidoff, a Robusto, one of the Churchill brands.
That's what I've got. That's
Called
what I picked up too.
Called the late hour. How apropos is
Perfect.
that, huh?
You know, Frank, what I just realized,
What's that?
it's Tuesday night. You know
Yes.
where we're not? At Chuck E. Cheese. Okay, brother? You know what we're not doing? We're not picking up our kids from their 8 o'clock swim meet.
The swim. I'll tell you what. Let me tell you. I can't tell
sorry.
you how many of those I did. Oh my gosh. You know, there were days. In fact, it was so funny. The swim coach used to make me be the place judge, and the only thing that it actually gave me some excitement because it was kind of like a horse race. I could kind of bet as they were coming down.
Wow.
That was like 2 years ago. So when you were talking about us having the good life, I was like, I'm just recently back into the good life, brother.
Yeah, I never had any of those kids things.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You got Deuce.
I
Two
skipped
of
that.
them. Well, again, this is just a great cigar and a great place. And again, like Ray said, we're on a Tuesday night having fun. It was like when our first show that we did up at Cabernet. Like, what a way to spend a Monday night, right?
Wine, steaks, and good conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we broke, I asked you guys a trivia question. Did you come up with the restaurant where Michael Corleone came out of the bathroom with the gun that was taped up by Clemenza, came out blasting, caught him right in the forehead?
Oh, the clam shop.
No,
Am I
no.
wrong? Oh, that's the real
The
murder.
that's right. That's real
murder.
murder. That's right.
That's the real murder.
That's why they got Big Paul Castellano
That's
coming
right.
out.
Hey, sorry.
Yeah.
No, fact and fiction, you know?
The restaurant was Jack Dempsey's. Remember Jack
Ah.
Dempsey's over in the Bronx? Remember the guy did the U-turn on I guess it was the George Washington Bridge and then headed back over into the Bronx.
Right.
Again, but what a great movie. And by the way, what a great family of movies. And not only number 1 and number 2, number 3 wasn't what it should have been. I still liked it. I still watched it, right? But what it did was it propelled that genre of the mob movies. You had them up to a point, the old film noir, and then they went away. The Western took over for that
Right.
for that
Right.
gangster movie of
For the
the
violence.
50s. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then 72 with Francis Ford Coppola brought it back. And then now you saw a lot of the spin-offs. You saw Goodfellas. You had Bronx Tale.
Bronx Tale, my favorite. My personal favorite.
Well, they said that was one of the more realistic.
That's my
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
And it's really my father's growing up, just a little bit before my time. But I mean, that was a working class Italian family in the North Bronx, South Yonkers, Queens, could have been Staten Island,
Yeah.
could have been any of those working class neighborhoods in New York.
Yep.
Where dad worked for the bus, drove the bus,
Yeah.
and you were on the third floor.
Taking some
walk
poor
up.
Irish guy's civil servant job.
That's
by the
right.
way.
Yeah, you
Hey,
guys
that was our territory.
You guys, that was your territory. Very true. As I always say, I grew up in a neighborhood that was 48% Italian, 48% Jewish, and the 4% were the Irish. They were the firemen, the cops, the garbage, sanitation,
Civil servants. And by
Civil
the way,
servants.
it's kind of funny. That was actually a planned move by the Irish because they knew they came in at the bottom of the rung. By the way, all this talk about reparations, I'm looking for my reparations as well, just to let y'all know. But that was their thing. They had to come in as the civil servants. That was their only entree to it.
Right.
And then what happened was, because of being civil servants, then all of a sudden they got into politics. They were able to bridge that gap, and that's why you had all the Boss Tweed, all
Tammany Hall.
yeah, that's right,
Sure.
all the Irish politicians. Well, I brought it up in the first part when we started talking, and I just think it's fascinating. I want you to kind of talk about this. It's roughly the summer of Sam. You're out there working.
18 years old.
You're working the fish market, and you're driving around with thousands of dollars in cash in your pocket and a refrigerated truck, and you're going in and picking up and dropping off all the fish in
The famous
Lower East
Fulton
Side.
Fish Market on the Lower East Side of New York. Think Canal Street, Bacala Street.
Yeah.
That's where it was. And I drove a 22-foot straight back box refrigerated truck, wholesale fish market. And I'd go down there at about 1 o'clock in the morning. The market ran from midnight to about 8 o'clock in the morning, right under
The
the
witching hour right down
that's
there.
that's what separates good and evil. Right under the Brooklyn Bridge. And of course, it's 76, and the son of Sam is running around killing people.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Here I'm 18 years old with a paper license driving a commercial vehicle.
If he'd have got you, they would have never known.
I weigh 135 pounds. And I've got 10 grand on me at any time in cash to buy the fish.
Yeah.
That was the best way to get the deals.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm going
Cash
from,
carries,
whether it was Blue Ribbon, Caleb and Haley, All American. I remember all the stalls, and you went in and bought 1,000 pounds of flounder, 500 pounds of this. They'd load. Vinny, no kidding. Vinny would shepherd the truck. He'd make sure it was parked.
Who's come in here? You got to get the fish,
And
and
I'd
you
give-
got to get out
I'd
of
give
here.
Vinny the
Oh,
envelope to make
absolutely.
sure the truck was protected. We did our business ship to shore. I didn't own it, obviously, but the guy did. We did business with a clam guy out of Long Island who was not permitted in the market. He was banned by the
yeah.
mob in the market. He had burned him. He could not go. But we needed clams, and clams that back then came in bushels of clams, 120 clams per bag. It was in a burlap bag, and we would get 75 to 80 bags. And of course, we would pay cash. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy was so dirty. Here's what happened: I would park my truck on Mulberry Street. He would park his truck, and we'd go tail to tail, so we could unload. I could unload
yeah.
and drag him into mine.
And,
And a guy,
and nobody could see his license plate.
that's right. And a guy with a shotgun
Oh, Lord.
stood in the street to guard us
Oh my God.
while we did the transaction. I give him the cash. I'd roll down the back of the truck, through the Holland Tunnel. Boom, I was out. Now, of course, this is how it worked. So I had 75 bushels of clams, bags, and they were burlap bags,
Oh yeah.
and they were tied together with like ties.
It's like the oyster
Yeah,
sacks.
yeah.
Yeah. Know it well.
Well, so look, hey, I got my side action, so I'd open up every
yeah,
bag,
absolutely.
and
I
I take
siphon a few
I
of
take
them
3,
off.
4
Yeah,
clams out of every
absolutely.
bag. I made my own 2 bags.
Yeah.
And at the end of the run, I get to a restaurant and say I got 2, a little discount, and
Yeah.
that was my vig for the trip. Okay, so I paid my way through community
Hey.
college. All right,
Hey, nobody weighs those bags. It's
He was
hey,
counting.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
just clams.
Hey, hey.
between friends.
Like I used to joke with my bartenders when I used to own my bars. Look, I know you're going to steal from me. Just steal smartly so we don't all go out of business.
Don't take too much. Okay, it's enough for everybody.
Don't be a fool.
Don't be greedy.
Well, now let me ask you: Did you ever have run-ins with Vinny Bubats and any of the guys?
No. I worked for a guy.
Oh, probably because it was so structured.
Let me tell you,
Yeah, so structured.
in the market, a woman could walk through there in a mini skirt, high
Unmolested.
heels.
Yeah.
They would cat whistle.
Yeah.
People would say things, but you know why nothing happened? Because they didn't know who
Exactly.
her
Yeah.
father or her brother
Yeah.
was,
That's right.
and they knew they wind up in the East River and with the rest of their family. There were rules, just like the unwritten rules of baseball.
Uh-huh.
There were the unwritten rules that everybody knew.
Yeah.
And you minded your P's and your Q's, and there was a limit. And we had AAA rating, my company, the company I worked for. So here's this 18-year-old kid buying thousands of pounds of
Oh,
fish
yeah.
because they knew my guy was good for it.
Yeah.
And we
And it
always
wasn't bad fish. It wasn't.
Oh no, we got
old.
top
Yeah,
shelf.
that's right,
Top
yeah.
shelf. Sometimes they'd say, "Hey, look, I got something that's kind of in its last innings. You got somebody who needs
Move this quick.
It's got to be today. It's got to be cooked. Today is the day." And that was all that it is. Sometimes you had a buyer. They would say, "Look, you save me a little money. Something I could cook up today." So I learned. I say this all the time. I went to a phenomenal law school here in Atlanta, Emory Law School. I don't know why they accepted me, but I knew all that I needed to know really to practice law, not the law, but the practice of law.
The application of it. From
How
that,
to deal with people, how to get paid, what value was. When the other guy had aces and eights and you had a pair of fives and you had to negotiate. I learned all that in the Fulton Fish Market.
Same thing with me. Bar business, LSU in the bar business.
Right.
I tell people, anybody wants to listen, I learned more in 4 months running my bars than I did in the entire. Well, I joke, the 9 best years of my life. That was LSU. We got 9 years. Yeah, I was 5 years actually in school, and the other 4 I was working, but it totaled up to 9 years. And I'll tell you what you learned in the bar business, and what you learn from dealing with people,
I started a fire.
having deals come in. I mean, I can't tell you how many times the salesman would come in and go, "Hey, by the
I
way,
got a little something.
I got a little something
Samples.
extra on. I got a little something extra on the case. Somebody had to give it back." And I'm like, no questions were asked. By the way, I bought my first Mercedes that way. I had bought a 300D Mercedes diesel. Guy walked into my bar. He goes, "I'm gonna get my legs broken." I'm like, "Okay, well, this is always a good segue."
Good way to start the
I was like, "Okay, so what happened?" He goes, "Dude," he goes, "I had the worst weekend." He goes, "I lost every bet that I had," and he goes, "I doubled it up on Monday night." He goes, "I got crushed. This is like Wednesday." He goes, "I got to pay up tomorrow." He goes, "I got a 300D." I said, "Look, talk is cheap. Let me see
Where's
the pink slip.
title?
Where's the pink
baby.
slip?"
Right.
Looked at it. He goes, "I'm willing to sign it over $6,000 cash." And it was the sweetest car. 1979 300D.
Oh, that thing weighed 3,000 tons. Right.
If you hear that diesel engine just cranking.
Big leather seats.
I said, "Hang on a second. I'm going to the bank. You don't go anywhere. Here, just stay in. I'm gonna lock you up here in the bar. Drink all you want. I'll be right. So I bought my first Mercedes.
Racing for pink slips. That's what we used to call when we were kids.
Well, the bar business was also funny because, you had, especially at the campus bar, you had me running the place and eventually owning places, but I was in charge of people who were only a couple of years younger than me.
Yeah.
So it was like the Wild Wild West, and the sheriff was just, frankly, just a couple layers above the anarchy that was going in there.
And he could be taken care of too.
Well, absolutely. and I'll tell you, the police, anytime that we'd have an issue, the police would come in, whoever it was. It didn't matter what happened. They would look over at us and go, okay, who did what?
Who's the right guy?
And all we would do is point. And I tell you what, that one little that fork in the road for those two guys, it made all the difference in their night. The guy that was okay got walked out, got left, no problem.
And owed you.
The other guy, he went down to East Baton Rouge lockup, and it was a long night, long night. But
Frank, we talk about New Orleans. Of course, that's your second home.
Yep.
I've been there many times, but my romantic version of New Orleans is the greatest book, one of the greatest books, Confederacy of Dunces. Guys, young
Incredible.
guys, ever read?
It's incredible. It's a great book.
Totally recommend it. Now you know the legend a little better than I do, but I'm just going to tell it. Then you'll correct me as we go along.
Yep.
Remind me of the young man's name that wrote.
John Kennedy Toole.
John Kennedy Toole. He lived with his mom. They were probably hard scrabble. Didn't have a whole
Very
lot.
much. Yep.
And he
Irish Channel.
And he was off a little, off center.
Yeah.
Let's say that. So he writes this manuscript on the big chief Indian tablets,
Right.
yellow tablets with
Which make it into his stories as well.
and
That's
big
part of the
number
stories.
2
Yep,
pencils.
correct.
And is he at Tulane?
He is.
He's
Yep.
at Tulane,
Yep.
freshman,
Mhm.
and I believe he commits suicide in his freshman year. Is that
Well,
correct?
it was later,
Okay.
but he was a freshman at Tulane. He wrote it while he was in college.
Right. And upon his death, his mother finds this pile of yellow tablets in his closet or whatever under the bed.
Manuscript.
And
yep.
she brings it to his English professor at Tulane, who reads it and says, "This is phenomenal."
Well, there's 10 years that
Oh,
go
I didn't
in
know. See, that's what I'm saying. You're going to
between-
correct me.
She. Can you imagine? And he committed suicide, right? He had some issues, and he left this manuscript. So it was a distraught mother who had only one thing left of her son, and she stumbled on it by accident.
Yeah.
She knew he was writing, but she had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
And she was the only human being that said, "This thing is good." And for 10 years, this woman with a heavy heart shopped this manuscript around, and it was actually an author who she handed it to and said, "Look, why don't you read this? It's really good." And he actually placating her, like he's probably gotten 1,000 manuscripts, right?
Yeah.
I'll read one page, and that way I can tell the old lady, "Look, it
Thanks,
sucks."
it's great, but it's not a book.
He read it and he said it was brilliant. He goes, one page went to one chapter went to the entire book. And actually, he is the one that actually contacted LSU's press
I got it.
and said, "You got to take a look at this." And when they read it, within 11 months, he had won the Pulitzer Prize.
Posthumously.
Yeah,
One of the only times.
long past. And it's such a great book because it totally describes the characters of New Orleans.
Ignatius
Right,
and Miss
you know,
Trixie and the
it's just,
King Cakes.
And
What are the hot dogs called?
they're called
Something
not Lucky
weenies.
something dogs, but the tagline is 12 inches of pure pleasure.
Highly recommend it. Probably one of the 3 books that as my go-to books when I'm in that, I'm going to drink scotch and read a book, and they are in this order:
What?
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah,
by
right.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Mhm.
The Tropic of Cancer.
I haven't read that.
Oh,
Is that good? Yeah.
well, it was banned in America for 40 years.
Yeah,
That means it's
yeah, it's good.
By Miller. And of course,
Yep.
Confederacy of Dunces. And if you add those 3 books up, it'll sort of tell you where I'm coming from.
Yep.
Which is, an alternative
Well,
universe.
Fear and Loathing Las Vegas. What a beautifully bizarre book that is, Hunter S. Thompson.
But it also sums up from about 68 to 74
Oh, yeah.
in America, where we were, I'm old enough to remember it was chaos.
Oh yeah.
The country was trying to find its rhythm. End of the Vietnam War. Martin Luther King has been assassinated. Bobby Kennedy's been assassinated. We've got Nixon as president, which is, you look back on it and it's like, what? How did this all happen? And Thompson is writing all of that into this book.
While he's
drunk and
while he's campaigning for McGovern, he's actually, he's working with Rolling Stone and helping the McGovern campaign. I mean, there was a recent documentary on it, which was fantastic. I can't remember who did it, but I mean, it was all this backdrop, but it was all about just personal freedoms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally about that.
And of course, all those movies are coming out, and Woodstock, and Kent State. I remember this is my growing up.
Oh yeah,
which was just a sea of energy, great music, violence, and just a total reorienting of our society. Yeah,
it really was a powder keg.
Yeah.
So you would have been coming of your teenage years.
Yeah,
right.
I was born in '58.
Yeah, right.
So
right
I'm
at the
15,
time,
16 in the early '70s, and of course, you're trying to figure out yourself
Sure.
while your country is trying to figure out what it is. We might be going through a little bit of that now as well. So maybe not quite as I think that folks today are thinking that we're in this great period of upheaval. There have been other periods of upheaval that we have lived through.
Well, when we think about it, I mean, half the American cities were burning in 1968.
Detroit,
yeah,
Baltimore, you can go down the list. LA, yeah, you can go down the list.
It was
on fire.
amazing.
Bedford Stuyvesant, Brooklyn.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there was some violence in Brooklyn.
Bed-Stuy is
Yeah,
bad. It's a bad place.
Did you read any of the other Thompson
I
books
read
at the time?
the,
Rum Diaries.
I read the Rum Diaries.
Shaped my 20s.
Oh, you're good. You're knowledgeable.
I thought the Hell's Angels was really good though.
Very good.
Where he was in deep with the Hell's Angels for a while.
Yep.
That just showed a whole new side of them.
The only thing about Thompson, and as big a fan as I am, I'm sorry that he killed himself.
Yeah.
But I'm angry at him a little bit.
yeah.
He left early. I'm about to be 61. He wasn't much older than me. And his whole, walk the walk, talk the talk, and then take yourself out. It's like,
Yeah.
no, man, stick around and help us.
Mm.
We need you.
Yeah, he, was it Buy the Ticket, Take the Ride?
That's right.
Yeah.
Buy the ticket, take it right. You got it right. I will say one thing. In outside of Birmingham is the Barber Motorcycle Museum. Barber is a family in Alabama. That's Barber Dairy. It's very, very
Yeah.
big. And
Yeah.
they have this fantastic, it's right off I-20, just as you're going into Birmingham, motorcycle museum. They've got a Vincent Black Shadow.
Really?
That's right. So if you know the book.
I do.
They've got, and they actually made a Vincent Gray Shadow. They've got one of each, believe it
Really?
or not.
I didn't know that.
And
I knew
great ride. Go there. I'm not a motorcycle guy.
No, but
But we're
I
men.
like the
We like
book.
machines.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like fantastic. Moto Guzzi's, and
Do you know what they did for his funeral?
they shot him out of a
They
cannon.
shot him
Did
into,
Johnny Depp-
into a rocket.
I believe
They
Johnny.
put him in a rocket and shot him up
That's
into
right.
space.
I believe Johnny Depp.
Johnny
paid-
Depp
paid
took-
for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the way he prepared for playing him, he lived in Hunter S. Thompson's basement, which was basically a I don't want to say a prison, but it was
Right.
more prison than it was
Compound.
finished. It was in the compound.
And
but
there
he lived in the basement for about a year and a half, just trying to learn his mannerisms.
And if you watch the movie, now was that where the Buffaloes roam, or was
that was Bill Murray.
Bill Murray did
Bill
that
Murray
one.
was in Buffalo Room
And
with
then-
what's his name? The father from Everybody Loves Raymond, Young Frankenstein.
Peter
Peter
Boyle.
Boyle.
Peter
Yeah.
Boyle. He played the attorney,
But
Dr. Gonzo.
listen, Mo,
As was it as
it's a great
as your attorney, I recommend that you take all this drugs.
And then there's the Depp movie, which the screenplay is basically the book
Yes,
verbatim,
almost word for word,
almost word for word. There's a couple subtle
Yeah.
changes, which I wish they hadn't done,
with a cameo by Hunter S. Thompson in the casino.
and I wish Depp hadn't overplayed that. I think they should have done that a little straighter
Yeah.
and a little darker. I think it would have
I
been.
think that was a plenty dark movie.
It was, yeah, but I think if you had gone straighter,
Yeah,
just serious.
not as silly.
Yeah, not silly.
Yeah.
Take the silly out of it, because there was no, there was really no silly in that book. But I highly recommend that to any of our listeners. A very quick read, very well accompanied with a gin, Bombay Sapphire, which is a hallucinogen, and tonic, of course, and tonic water contains quinine. Quinine fights malaria, and
Yeah.
I'm here to report I am malaria free.
Those damn mosquitoes wouldn't
I'm
stand a
not scared of
chance.
them at all.
I think the Rum Diaries is my is the reason that I drink solely rum from like ages like 18 to 23.
There you go.
Just because of
It
that
gives
book.
you a drink.
Again, you're listening to The Good Life. It's Ray Giudice and Frank Duffy. Our producer, Daniel Milana, here with us as well. Our assistant, Connor, is here, ably standing by. And we're just, again, sitting here just doing what guys do, sitting around, good food, good cigars, enjoying ourselves here at the Buckhead Cigar Store, enjoying this fine Davidoff cigar, a nice full-bodied Robusto. It's a good cigar, it really
Fantastic. And quickly off air, Connor has greatly impressed me.
is. With his knowledge, yeah.
Greatly
Yeah.
impressed me. Connor, how old are you? Put up your 22, 23?
I'm 20.
20.
I also wanted to chime in on the Hunter Thompson.
Go for it.
Oh, is it 3? I wanted to chime in on the Hunter Thompson conversation quickly because before we were talking about Hunter Thompson,
Your grandparents read that book.
probably you're actually close to my dad's age.
Yeah, thank you very
much. So I'm in school for journalism.
Cool.
And we had
Journalism?
to read. I haven't read a ton of Thompson, but we did read his thing where he went to the Kentucky Derby and he was just drunk and on drugs the whole time.
Hey, wait.
And I was
absent the
thinking
drugs,
that
I remember
sounded a little bit like your recent Kentucky Derby.
Not that I'm aware of any drugs other than old man prescription drugs. we took our baby aspirin, our fish oil, our cholesterol drug, right? Some of us had to go to the bathroom a lot.
We had to make sure it didn't clash with the 86 and 90 proof. well, this is now a perfect segue into a segment we do each week that we call the Knucklehead Report.
Oh, the Knucklehead Report, yeah.
The Knucklehead Report. And by the way, our trip to the Derby probably would have qualified on many levels as the Knucklehead.
I will say, as a lawyer, I don't believe any felonies were committed. Now, there may have been a small series of misdemeanors, city ordinances, civil disobedience, some things like
Crimes
that.
against nature.
Yeah. Frank, we've gone too far once again. And let me also say, I will say this much. If you've read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and when Hunter is at Circus at the end, he's trying to buy the ape. We were at the Harrah's Casino.
Yes.
In Indiana. Is that right?
That's right.
And I was having a little flashbacks there because that was a seedy scene, brother.
They were not cut to the chase. How much for the chimp?
Let me put it this way. Frank and I constituted 90% of the teeth in that building, and I've lost a few.
It wasn't a pretty crowd.
Neither of us were on oxygen. It was
not pretty. Now I'll tell you where the pretty crowd was in
at the Derby.
Oh my goodness. There were pretty people doing pretty things.
People were putting on a show.
There were show ponies.
Oh my goodness.
That's the Derby, brother.
Yep. No playing around. And there's our boy Shaq. Hold on. He's pimping for the general.
Take the general and save some time.
Look at him.
He's great.
We love the Shaq. We love Shaq O'Neal.
Absolutely.
Tremendous guy.
By the way, I think we're probably at second inning of the Cubs game. Might have to see if we can get a score up
maybe
there.
somebody's been plunked. We need to find out. Somebody took one on the hip.
As we
Put
say.
it on the hip.
Well, we were hoping that Chris Domino, our buddy, was going to join us here tonight, but his the pregame, because of it being a Central Time zone, they had to take the pregame show like an hour and 15 minutes. So it wasn't normally the 15 to 20 minutes that he and Ben and Buck do. They had to do an hour of fill time. So, but we hope to get Chris here at one of these events. But back to the Knucklehead Report. Has anything come to mind on some of your composites of idiots gone by?
Well, I can't disclose names and of my clients.
And then those are the people we know.
That is people. I have a whole filing cabinet that's called 680 the fan /790 the zone. Most of the statute of limitations on the zone people have run out. We were at the. It's funny. We were at the 680 the fan golf tournament, charity tournament, Buckhead Classic, for
Mhm.
Children's Hospital on Friday, and I get up there around 6:30 in the morning. It's north of Atlanta in Lake Lanier, and by the time I was on air with the morning show at 8:20, no kidding, I had spoken to 5 different.
Oh yeah, sales reps coming up looking
Hey,
for.
I need to talk to you about. I got this little
I got
problem
this
up
issue.
in Johns Creek. Let me show you the citation. Or, she says she's going to take out a warrant, but she hasn't yet. So by the time I was in there, I'm like, I've been
How
practicing
far
law for
exactly is a restraining order? I mean, is that feet or yards or
Generally 500
or
yeah.
meters?
It's unbelievable. I will say that it's a much milder and well-behaved crowd than, let's say, 10 years ago.
There we go. We got the Braves up. Braves are up 1-0, and we're already in the 4th. Well, Freddie didn't get hit, so that's good.
He's still in the game.
Our best player's not out. That's good.
Well, I think what's going to happen. I think this is a targeted hit.
Oh yeah, no
Let
doubt.
me just say we're not taking out Rizzo.
No,
we're taking out
terms.
one guy.
And it's going to be the last game of it.
And-
It's going to be the last game.
The 4th game, 7th inning,
Yep.
his last at bat.
Yep.
If I was him, I'd be standing outside of at least 1 foot on the chalk.
That's right.
I would get all the old Sammy Sosa body armor that must be laying around.
Yeah, collecting
Because
dust.
he gonna get it.
He gonna get it. And I was sorry that they sent back Sobaka. I wanted him to deliver it because he's like he's a
an
giant.
assassin.
He's a giant,
big boy.
and he's got a big old fastball. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if he gets
And just
suspended,
do it on the
send him
first
back
pitch.
down.
Don't play
Yeah.
around.
Oh, no,
don't back him up. First pitch.
You don't want to take the chance that he gets a hit,
Well, not only that.
yeah, dribbles one to short, man.
Now, I'm not promoting headhunting. Those are the old days. That's the Drysdale, Bob Gibson,
Yeah.
Sudden Sam McDowell, Tom Seaver.
Cuellar, yeah.
Cuellar. That was the ear.
Yeah.
The ear hole. Okay.
Yeah.
Now don't do that.
Yeah,
The buttocks.
Yeah,
Put it in the hip.
Small in the
and, you know,
back.
Yeah, that's okay.
make him remember you for about a week.
About a week, but he'll be all right. He'll break nothing.
Well, we got to get him now because
We don't
we
see
don't
him
play
again.
him again, and we don't play him in spring
That's what I
training
heard.
next year.
That's what I
So
heard.
we got to get him now. If we don't get him now, I mean, he could be with Seattle by the next time we see him. We don't want that. We got to get him now. So, but in your defense of all these different folks, is there anybody like we were talking about when you give them the instructions of what to do and what not to do,
gosh.
that totally didn't listen? Like, look, you hardhead, you're making it harder on yourself.
As I say, don't double down on stupid. And as Chris Domino says, don't commit a crime while
you're
you've committed a crime.
in the process.
There's I need 7 minutes of good behavior on most cases where we're actually at the podium in front of the judge.
Correct.
Okay. Here are the rules. A, shut up. There's a minimum of words. Here are the 2 words. Yes,
Your
Honor. That's kind of 3, but I will.
Yeah,
I promise.
I promise.
You'll never see me again. It's a small lexicon necessary. Secondly, there is no humor. There's only one person who can tell jokes in the courtroom, and he or she is sitting with a black robe. And when they tell a joke, laugh.
Yeah.
Okay, laugh respectfully. Don't be creative. Don't think out of the box. Just shut up. You have hired me to do this for you. We are at the end of all of my work.
Yeah.
Just shut up and sing along with Mitch. You remember that?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking
absolutely.
about?
Mitch
You
Miller.
guys don't know.
The sing along.
So this is how great TV was in the early 60s. You would turn on, and I think that was CBS.
Oh, it was big time. Yeah, Mitch Miller.
Prime time. There was a band leader called Mitch Miller. And what would happen is you would hear the music and see the orchestra, and the words would come up with a bouncing ball.
It was the first layover on camera.
Sing along with Mitch, and you
first
follow
visual.
the bouncing ball on the words. Right? God. I know, it's sad.
URL.
It's sad. And it was black and white.
But now I got some good advice for you. I was listening to 680 The Fan on the way down here, and our good buddy Ben Ingram, who's actually
The Pipes of God.
the Pipes of God, absolutely want my endorsement. I was fortuitous and foresaw the talent that he had, and I got him to be one of our endorsers. But Los was in for Matt, and he and Chuck called Ben because they were having some discussions on dating advice, right? And so Ben, who's good looking guy, he wound up telling us there's no way on his first dates that he ever takes anybody out for dinner. And he said only drinks. Now, if it goes into more than that, I want to ask him on a second time. We'll do dinner. If it progresses even quicker than that, well, then there's breakfast might be involved. Or he said
brunch.
Brunch is even better than breakfast. But he said a line that I thought was really pretty cool. He said, "Food is for suckers."
Although I'm gonna disagree with Ben a little bit, but I'm a little older, and not as good looking, by the way. I love going out to dinner. Atlanta, we are so blessed.
Yeah, we are.
We have it's a foodie town.
Yep.
Of course, we're sort of on the old school steakhouse tour and
Correct.
making a little deviation here tonight, but not much. And but I just think, again, maybe this is the Italian New Yorker in me. Yeah, you share food, and you know what? You learn a lot about who's sitting across the table from you, but how they order. Are they fussy? Where are they at? Where their heads at? I mean,
anybody orders the marinara on the side, I'm out of there.
Yeah, you're done. You're done.
Well, it was funny, and I was joking. I was like, wait a minute, Chuck's married. Los has been married for like 16 years.
Yes.
He and Allison. So they were actually giving Ben advice. I was thinking, wait a minute, I don't know if that's actually.
First
That's
of all,
actually good, boys.
Well,
I think he's got it handled pretty good.
He's got a good, yeah.
Worked
When I was married, I always kept my wife away from him because I'm like,
the events.
if you're gonna run off, don't run off with someone I know. Please give me a break. Give me a little dignity.
It was so funny. We went down to Orlando with 680, one of the trips. And it was the one Rhonda actually went down with. And she doesn't really like baseball. She doesn't go out to the games and stuff. But she wanted to go on that particular trip. So cool. It was Kevin McAlpin, who's very knowledgeable on baseball. He's actually a Philly guy. And so we were sitting there, and Nate was on one side, and Ben and Kev. And we were sitting there just bullshitting. And Rhonda goes, yeah. She goes, I didn't know baseball was this fun. I said, no, it's only this fun because you're talking to all these young guys.
Yeah, right.
I said, when I talk, you glaze over. You're not interested in that. By the way, what a great time that was going down to Orlando, and you went this year. I think you and I both went down a couple of years ago.
Yes, we did.
And it's just a fun trip. Remember the old days of the junkets? And I know you guys did that with the lawyers and stuff. Y'all would have like seminars, different places, and I did it in the corporate world. We would have them like once a quarter, and it was just so much fun. And it's just a way to go down and recharge the batteries, and and it's a way to thank your endorsers and your sponsors, and it was such a good thing to do.
Also, what I love about the things that we do with the radio station is, especially when you and I and Ted Jenkin and Jay Cunningham and the folks from all the other companies, we're all entrepreneurs.
Yep.
I mean, I run the law business, you run the real estate business, and we cross.
Yep.
Ideas and,
Yep.
and ideas about how to market and how to deal with employees and insurance
Correct.
rates and
Because a lot of it is mutual. It's a lot of it.
It really is.
You know,
And we all got
Oh,
each
man.
other's backs, and we log rolling in our time. You guys remember Spy Magazine? One of the greats before there was the Onion. There was Spy Magazine, which came out of New York City back in the 80s. And they have one of the greatest quotes. You should look it up. They called Trump the short-fingered vulgarian, was his nickname in Spy Magazine. And
that's way back when.
and
That's when he was doing the Art of the Deal.
That's right. And great satirical magazine run by, I think it was Steve Brill, and some really smart people and very, very snappy. And the Onion has sort of carried that mantra forward.
I'll tell you the magazine I used to read. I mean, all the time. I couldn't wait for the Mad Magazine.
What
Wasn't it
me
freaking
worry?
hilarious?
Spy versus Spy. I think we, as a society, we don't laugh as much as we used to. There used to be a show called Laugh-In.
Oh yeah,
There was a TV
dude.
show called Laugh-In, and it was ridiculously stupid.
Oh yeah,
and just crazy.
They actually recently did an anniversary episode.
Is that
on,
right?
On Netflix. A lot of modern stars, but they had the three main
Goldie
Lily-
Hawn.
Goldie Hawn did not
Tomlin?
show up.
Oh, Lily
wow.
Tomlin.
Lily Tomlin,
Joanne Worley.
Joanne Worley.
Oh my gosh, she's got to be like 100.
They were very old. And then I can't remember her name. I know the character. She always had the
Ruth Buzzy.
Ruth Buzzy,
the granny.
Yes.
Yeah,
She was back, and she actually did her old character again.
Where she was hitting
where she was
people
hitting people
with
with
the
the
handbag?
purse. Yeah.
That's like. By the way, there's a really funny Dean Martin roast where she comes out
Yes.
when it's the roast of Frank Sinatra, and she's there like the old bad bag, and she hits him so hard, and Sinatra wore that
Did
toupee.
not have a sense of humor.
No, he did. Well,
Not a great one.
and he had the toupee, so she's hitting the hell out of him, and he's taking it in the chops because he's holding on to his friggin' hair so bad he doesn't want it to fly off in the middle of the Sands Hotel. man.
Rowan and Martin's
Oh, yeah.
laughing. And those were two old, heavy drinking
Oh, dude.
dudes.
Dan Rowan
They
and
were-
Dick Martin, they were
old
old
and
school guys.
Dick Martin is the one that's still alive. He
Yeah.
was actually
Dan
there.
Rowan
he,
died,
was,
yeah.
he was there as well. Dick Martin was there
Yeah.
in the audience watching them all come
They were
back.
serious dudes.
Piece of trivia. What was the president that went on laughing?
Nixon. Yeah.
I even knew that. Nixon.
Yeah.
And
Suck it to me?
Yeah, the inflection was the worst part.
That's right. He lost 100,000 votes just on that alone, man.
Random trivia. What was the name? Since you brought up Mad Magazine, what was the child's name on the front? He had a name.
Oh, Alfred E. Newman.
There you
Albert
go.
E. Newman.
All right.
What me worry.
With
Yeah.
He was a redhead, by the way.
He was
I'll
a
point that
freckled
out.
That's right. Yeah, sure was. All right, we're getting ready to take our third break, and I have another piece of trivia question for you. We were, talking a lot about the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford.
Peter Lawford.
Who was the first leader of the Rat Pack?
Oh,
It
God.
was not Frank Sinatra. Think about that and come on back here to The Good Life. It's Frank Duffy, Ray Giudice, your host. Again, our full-time guest host, Ted Jenkin, is not with us, but he'll be back for the next show, and we hope you come back, too. Come on back to our last segment here on The Good Life.
Did you just receive a bonus, a windfall, or an inheritance, and you're worried about making a tax mistake? Will you owe capital gains tax? Should you be letting the money sit in cash? What if you're inheriting IRA accounts? Go to oxygenfinancial.net to get our free guide, 5 money moves to make when you get a windfall. We can help you make smarter decisions with your money. Go to oxygenfinancial.net right now to get our free guide on bonuses, windfalls, and inheritances. Go to oxygenfinancial.net today.
You're listening to The Good Life. I'm Frank Duffy. I'm a co-host with Ray Giudice of Giudice Law. I'm the owner of Duffy Realty, and you're listening to a show that's based upon guys talking about guys' things. We're talking about, again, sports, good booze, cigars. Again, we're enjoying these wonderful Davidoff cigars here at the Buckhead Cigar Store in the back here of Dantanna's. We've had a wonderful meal tonight, great libations. And again, just, guys being able to unabashedly sit around and be guys.
I'll tell you, in good company, I'm very impressed with these two young cats we got here.
That's right.
They're
Daniel and Connor
they're
are
kind of going to bearers of the torch moving forward. I like that.
absolutely. And Daniel's been our producer for all four. This is our fourth show, and this is Connor's first time coming out. And it's been kind of nice. We kind of like have like an audience out here. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like doing stand up because you can get some feedback. Normally when we're doing our recording, we're not getting too much feedback. We're getting feedback now.
Feedback, I guess. People turn the channel.
I'll keep coming back as long as you guys keep making
We're good for that.
Why do you-
You're
why
a
do you-
light eater. You're fine.
Why do you think I keep the show going?
Yeah, once a week, Daniel gets a good meal.
That's right. That's right.
Not to say my wife isn't a good cook. If you're listening, you're a great
That's
cook.
right. honey, you're
It's
a good cook.
it's a different good meal.
That's right. That's right. He's obviously a young married man, right?
Still happily married.
That's right.
Apparently.
That's right. Well, I wanted to bring us back. We were talking about the Rat Pack, And who was the first leader of the Rat Pack?
Frank, you got me on that.
And you it's really interesting. Humphrey Bogart. He was the
makes sense.
very first
Sure.
leader of the Rat. In fact, he was the one that named the Rat Pack, and it was Lauren Bacall,
Yeah.
his girlfriend and wife, who they met doing all those film noir movies back in the 40s, and she called it. She goes, "You and your pack of rats." And that's how he said, well, then it's a Rat Pack.
Quick aside, last Saturday night, a week ago Saturday night, went to the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra
Yeah, you told me that.
at the Woodruff Arts Museum, or the
Arts
whole
Center, yeah.
complex. And the symphony played the score to Casablanca.
Oh, how cool.
While we watched Casablanca on
That
the
had to be
big screen.
freaking
We had
cool.
great seats right up front next to the orchestra.
That's so cool.
And I hadn't seen the movie probably 8-10 years. I've seen it many times, but just powerful.
Yep.
And just to be in the presence of professional musicians,
Yeah.
people who have quit their day jobs. They don't need
That's
a day
right.
job.
Yeah, that's right.
They make their living playing the
Correct.
oboe or the violin
Yep.
or whatever, a talent that I don't have and
Yes.
would never have. And of course, a fantastic movie, and you
Great
just
movie.
don't realize how good it is
Yep.
until
Well, and think about it. It was actually done in 1942.
just pre-war.
It was
A war movie.
it was a propaganda
Get
movie.
ready for war.
That's exactly
Yep.
right. And it was so cool. And Humphrey Bogart played the perfect American. I really don't want to be in this, but if I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be on the right side of this. And who better? I mean, think of all the guys that went off to war, the millions of GIs that went off.
Regular guys.
And you had, regular guys, right? Save the world. But they've got their pictures of Rita Hayworth up. But who better than Ingrid Bergman to go off and fight for? I mean, she's got that face, that look, right? And it was complicated, just like the war was complicated. His relationship, right? He kind of had to give way to her husband, who she didn't know she had lost. And it's just a fabulous movie. I mean, just and by the way, I write screenplays and I write stage plays, and it's almost every word is perfect. I actually watched it after starting to write them, and I actually got the screenplay itself and read it, and there is not one superfluous word.
I was just
that's
no
uttered.
dialogue is wasted.
No,
Nothing
none.
meaningless. Nothing,
Everything is meaningful.
Nothing for shock value,
That's right.
and it all ties together at the end.
I
With a
remember.
bow on it.
I remember the Germans wore gray, you wore blue. But Humphrey Bogart was actually the leader of the Rat Pack, and they used to hang around Beverly, the Beverly Hills area, and they would just have the funnest times, and they would just go have a blast. And that's where Frank Sinatra got brought into it, because he was dating Ava Gardner back in the day, and she was all in that. And then when Humphrey Bogart sadly died fairly early of cancer, right? Early 60s.
Heavy smoker.
Yeah. And back then it was the unfiltered Camels. I mean, there was nothing stopping the cancer.
Not like these filtered cigars we're huffing on here. These must be good for us.
What was the old saying? Don't do as I do, do as I say.
Well, at this point, what the hell?
Yeah, that's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
I lived this long.
I hate to. It's like the old guy that goes, "Yeah, I'm 100. I've been eating, lard, from fried eggs in the morning.
6 scotches a day."
Yeah, that's right.
Packs
of Luckies.
Of course, Lincoln, during the Civil War, the truth is, the South had the generals. Lee and his Stonewall Jackson
and the fighters too.
They had the generals. In fact, Lincoln asked Lee to lead the Union trips.
Yeah,
he was number 1 at West Point.
First offer. Yep.
And of course, Grant was next to last in West Point.
First drinker, last in class.
And so Lincoln's cabinet and generals, McClellan, who was the leader of the Union Army, came to Lincoln and said, "Grant is a drinker. You got to get rid of him." And Lincoln famously said, "Find out what he drinks and give it to all of my generals."
Right. And by the way, I'm firing you, and he's getting
that's
your
right. He's the guy. And then we'll go slaughter, 800,000 Americans. Just,
Now, I wanted to bring up something interesting. We've been trying. Now, we this is our 4th show, and we've been doing this, I guess, about a month, because the Derby was
5-6 weeks.
The first week of May. So, but here's the thing. Most of the podcasts that are done in this country are done by millennials, and they live in their parents' basement. They have all freaking day to do podcasts. I'm telling you what, it takes forever for us three, and with Daniel as a fourth, for us to get together and actually schedule one of these.
Work.
Because we work. So I was joking with Daniel. I was like, trying to put these things together, a lot of the people that talk about their podcast or whatever, there's not a lot of other things that are going on maybe in their lives. Have you ever had three busier people try to actually stop and get together and put 2 hours of content down?
And I run 16 separate shows on my own.
Wow.
And that's my job.
Wow.
Yep.
So this is one of 16.
Yeah.
So the amount of time and effort we put into this, I do that 15 more times with other shows.
That's amazing.
That
It's
is
impressive.
amazing. That is
But
amazing.
you do it well.
Yeah, you
Thank
do
you.
Very well.
In fact, I wanted to bring this up to you. It's obviously it's an industry, right? Where is it that you guys have monetized the podcast? How are y'all doing that?
So the biggest way that we've been able to do it is find companies, restaurants, businesses, everything like that, everything in between, really, to sponsor episodes. They can come on.
Old-time sponsor, old-time's advertising. Yep.
Exactly. Sometimes they'll start their own show, so they'll have the, like one that we had was the Made in Alpharetta podcast.
Yeah.
It was actually started by the Alpharetta Chamber or Convention and Visitors
Ben
Bureau.
Burnett.
Yeah.
Ben Burnett
Very
started
dear
his own
friend of
show.
mine. We go
Yeah,
way
buddy.
back
Yeah.
to Emory College many
Ben's,
years ago.
he's in the middle of getting season 2 ready. He wrapped up season 1. He had I think about 25 episodes, 2 of which
I
were
take
Frank.
pride that I'm the only repeat guest that he ever had.
Is that
I
right?
take pride of that.
And you were the last guest of season 2 or season 1.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
There
you
you
were
go.
the
Well,
finale.
that ended that. Yeah, we're now going on hiatus.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Frank. I haven't heard from Ben since. Yeah,
He's in a witness protection
You
program.
it's kind of funny,
living
actually.
in Tucson. And
Actually, it's kind of
two-bedroom
funny.
stucco.
Before I did Ben's show, I actually went before Ben to get
a zoning thing.
my historic designation. So I didn't know Ben at the time. He was one of the councilmen up there that I had a tap dance in front of. And then we actually got to know each other because we actually were going to we did make a side bet on the Alabama LSU game.
Oh yeah.
On who was going to play more. It was whether Jalen Hurts was going to get in and throw more touchdowns than my guy Burrow. Well, they shut us out, so my guy didn't win, but his guy didn't get in either. So it was like a draw. It was a draw. And he goes, look, you're kind of funny. I need to have you on. But it was so funny in Twitter. I popped back at him. I said, okay, great. What do we got on this? $1,000. He was a homina. He goes, I'm just a public official. I can't do. I'm not doing that. He goes, besides, it might be tough on re-election.
What I like about this is that it's a great and inexpensive way for people. So you, me, and Ted, we're entrepreneurs. We sell products. I sell legal service, real estate investment advice. Ted, brilliant. If you guys got a little money, anybody's got a little money, and you want to make it to be more money, go see Ted Jenkins.
Yep.
His wife is from Yonkers, where I grew up.
That's right.
So that's a big connection. But a solid guy. I know a number of people that have put their money with him and have just done so well. And as you move forward, and I tell, I'm in the jury box almost every day of the week waiting for a judge to come out, and all we lawyers are kibitzing. And I tell the young lawyers, look, I don't care whether you put $250 a month away. Put $250 a month away.
Yeah.
Do it now when you're 28,
Ted always
32.
says it. Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself. Put something
Put it away.
Put an extra $150 on the mortgage payment. Whatever it is, don't rack up debt, because it's going to allow you to have freedom to some extent later in life.
Correct.
And also just not to have that pressure of the wolf is at the door. I tell young lawyers, run your practice as a business, so that you can do the most ethical decision for your client, because you're not trying to pay the payroll. Where you have to settle a case quick, where you have to overcharge somebody.
You're not tap dancing for somebody else.
That's right. Run it as a business, run it professional. I sell legal services. High quality for a profit. And therefore I have enough resources and staff, and I don't have to take the cases I don't want to take. And you guys both do the same. And that's
money is freedom.
I think this is, as much as we tell stories and go back, it's about how entrepreneurs can move forward and keep a business going. Be healthy. Look, I have 9 employees. How many employees do you have?
45.
Okay. Ted's got what, 20 or 25?
Yeah, about.
Okay. we make jobs. We're the
Correct.
people that make jobs. That's why this economy is going so
Yep.
well. It's not Ford. It's
Oh,
not
no.
Intel.
Small
it's
business, yeah.
small businesses that we buy copiers, we buy computers, we buy paper. We have our employees, and then we have the IT guy, and we have the PR girl, and
Oh,
we have
yeah.
all kinds of subcontractors that
Correct.
work for us. And our camaraderie amongst the entrepreneurs, whether it's here or with the 680 people, we exchange ideas and we make each other better.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
no doubt.
And I think going back to the podcast sponsoring, I think that's in a long form podcast like this, where there are multiple subjects being brought up, whether there is business or we go
Yeah.
into gambling or we go into finance or anything like that. Sponsors have a way of enhancing those shows, whether they come
Oh,
on
yeah.
with us and they're the ones able to give us that information, and people listening are either people that are already in your position that want to hear good war stories and
Sure.
be able to learn some new tricks maybe they haven't heard before, or people that are really trying to get to your position, trying to get to where you guys are in life, and the information you guys give out is invaluable to
The
them.
best
So,
sponsors are really called partners.
exactly.
And
And that's what
and
I always call them that.
it's better
Everything
for
I do,
everyone.
it's a
We're all
part,
trying to help
it's
each
a
other
partnership.
lift the boats, lift the tide
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everybody.
So sponsors on a show like this have the chance to get that information out to people who are trying to enhance their lives, enhance their businesses. They're the people that really need it the most.
Well,
and
They need the
one
help.
of the things is for example, myself. So between my LinkedIn, I've got about 3,800 professionals on LinkedIn, about 3,000 Facebook, about 2,000 Instagram. I've got Avo. So I will repurpose this
Oh, yeah.
content as you do
Snackables.
to reach more people. But there are people who do what we do or
Sure.
do an ancillary. So nurses, physical therapists, and private investigators, people in my world that help me and my firm. I try to help them. Same
Sure.
for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Well,
the fact that there are the three of you, with Ted not being here, but the three of you are in such diverse businesses, then it
Yeah.
really means anyone can come on with us. Anyone can talk about their companies
Oh,
because
absolutely.
there's something for everyone.
And we all learn from
And
each other.
And it's the sponsorship itself is evergreen. It's if you talk about it on the show once, some people, I never read an old newspaper. I never read, I never go. Sometimes I'll go watch an old episode of TV, but podcasts, if you find one that you like, you'll go
Yeah.
back and listen to the last 20 episodes that they've done. And if you're advertising on all 20 of them,
absolutely.
you're now front of mind.
Well, and think about it this way. I mean, think of what it took to get media in the past. It was incredibly expensive. I mean, you'd have to get content like this put out on mass media. You would have to hit life's lottery, right?
Mhm.
I mean, even all the contacts we know, it's hard for us to get on
and,
media.
and if it didn't catch quick,
oh, you're
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
then you were done. It was a
Yeah.
waste of your money. And so I'll quite often, on behalf of our friends at 680, talk to one of their new potential customers. And what I say all the time is commit to a year.
yeah.
See where it brings you.
You got to build the brand,
Yep.
and you got to protect the brand.
Correct.
You've got to continue to reach out to additional people, provide fresh information, fresh insights. You just can't run the same ad or the same story or
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
jingle, to use an old
Correct.
school term.
And not to self-promote, but we're not doing this out of someone's basement. My production company isn't a basement operation. It's it's an actual
Yeah.
newspaper that's been around for over 30 years. They got into
Correct.
the podcast space. We have a built-in audience, and everyone that comes on one of our shows that has every episode itself gets blasted across all their social media.
Yeah.
But any sponsor of the show or any show that we have, you get circulation too. I mean, we put ads in the paper for all of our shows. So your logo pops up right there, and I think it's over 93,000 in circulation right now,
And that repetitiveness,
all the time.
Oh, yeah. Multiple
Mhm.
platforms.
Ab-
That's why I
Absolutely.
say evergreen. You'll
Yep.
you'll see it. You'll see it whenever you want.
Well, and what's really cool is we're willing to go out and do it in different places.
Mhm.
There's a new backdrop.
trying to make it fresh,
Yeah.
different angle.
Absolutely. And again, fun. Our whole goal behind this was to think about a show that's run from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock for guys that are stuck at the swim practice who would love to be out here having steaks or appetizers and bourbon with us and have cigars. They can't do that. But you know what they can do? As soon as the kids go to bed at 10:30 at night, before they go to bed, they can catch an hour of this.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Fun stuff.
And I'm not the youngest guy. I'm going to go ahead and say younger than the people at this table.
Yep.
Not Connor, but stuff like this I'm interested in, not because I've been through it. It's because I want to go through it. I want to get to the point where I am, having a cigar on a was it Tuesday night just because I
Sure.
can, going to have a nice steak dinner just, with my other friends who have gotten to this
There's
level.
nothing
So it's
better.
it's a nice
There's really nothing better.
it's a nice goal to have.
I have
and
suits that are
listening to
older
people
than
that
Connor,
yeah.
and I still wear them. I have to let them out in the pants a little bit, a little wide. It's a little bit more of me than it was 20 years ago.
Well, and I was going to say Connor just stepped off, but I was going to say I've got a 20-year-old as well, and what I can tell him, it will be amazing how quick the time goes from when you're sitting there to sitting here.
Yeah.
It's very, very quick. That 40-year span will go by in like that.
But
and shows like this give you a good roadmap.
That's right. And it also shows you better be enjoying it on the way, because it ain't a destination game. It is a process that you want to have fun on the path.
On your tombstone, it's the date that you're born and the date that you died, and there's a dash.
Mm-hmm.
Your life is that dash.
Correct.
You need to enjoy the hell out of it.
Correct.
I'm a big believer in living large. Don't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Pay your taxes. Keep
Do
your
it the
car
right way.
insured. Do
Have
things.
his number in
Have
case
my
you need
number
it.
in case- and we're all going to have some bumps in the road, but also have some good friends that can help you get back on the rails on that day that you get off the rails. We're all
Yeah.
going to, whether it's a health problem, a bump
The
in
elevator don't go straight up, boys.
No, there's some sideways in everybody's life.
Well, before we switch it over, just if anyone is interested in sponsoring this show or any of the other App Media shows, email me, Daniel@appedmediagroup.com, APPEN, or you can email the show at thegoodlife@appedmediagroup.com.
And we're going to be really, really good at giving you on-air mentions because, well, we live by them on 680.
Well, we like our partners.
Absolutely.
We believe in partners.
Absolutely.
Oh, or by the time this show comes out, you can also go to thegoodlife.com.
Yeah.
And
How
reach
cool is
out
that?
to
We're
us
looking
there.
forward to getting our website done.
Or the Good Life Podcast.
And if you want to get on the ground floor of a very new show,
Okay.
the Rereadables with your
Connor's-
host, Connor Evans. That's me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, give us a little
Be
plug.
reject-
What's
Tell
gonna
us
be the-
about it.
Yeah.
So the Rereadables, we look back at books that people probably read in high school or college
Sweet.
or other just well-known novels. So far, we've done The Great Gatsby.
Cool.
Catcher in the Rye will be
Scott.
out, I think, by the time this
J.D.
show is out.
Salinger. Yeah.
And also Never Let Me Go, a great book. We're doing a lot of stuff this summer, trying to do 10 or 12 episodes before my internship is over.
Cool. Where are you going to school?
I go to University of Richmond.
There you go. Spiders.
Yes,
Go Spiders.
I'm an English
My
major
gambling
and
background.
journalism major there.
Oh, sweet.
So
Sweet. That's
some of these
awesome.
books are books I had to read for my English degree
Sure.
so far.
It's kind of funny. You mentioned Catcher in the Rye. I remember I was 12 years old, and they said, "Okay, go pick out a book from the library. Read what you want." And I was actually a catcher on my little league team, and I picked up Catcher in the Rye at 12, and I was like, "There ain't no catchers in here. This is." But you know what? Whatever this is, I want some of this.
And all of a sudden, I really dislike John Lennon. I don't know why.
Oh, these Beatles are pretty damn good. And actually, sadly enough, that was during my time period. But like, they just put out the White Album about that time to let you know. Well, switching gears, I wanted to just touch on this real quickly. Speaking of our friends at 680, of course, we like to speak sports as well. I got a question for you. The 2019 season, so again, not counting the Hawks that just finished, they will be counted from 2019 to 2020. Who's going to have the best finish out of all three of our teams? Braves, Falcons, or Hawks?
I think excuse me. I think the Braves.
You think we're built to get past the Dodgers?
Look, you said season.
Yeah.
Season ends in, 162 games.
Correct.
I think we're a 91 to 94
that's fair.
game winner.
Yep.
We're in the
That's fair.
playoffs at some level. Postseason, I don't know quite right now that our
pitching
pitching
staff,
staff
that's
is
what I'm
not
worried
a
about.
postseason
Yeah.
pitching staff. What do you have to have? You
Three
have to have a
horses.
horse,
Yep.
one at least, that can go 3 games in a 7-game series.
Correct.
You've got to have at least
Throwing BBs.
somebody that can come out and shut down a game.
Correct.
We do not have
Oh,
a real
I
close.
think we will get one before it's over with. I
But
really
we
do.
need to.
Yep.
So that's a postseason problem. I don't think the Falcons.
I don't either.
I love all the. Look, Matt Ryan, great guy, great player. Julio, great player. We have no defense. And
and the guys that are on defense are crazy. They're
and at
nuts.
this point in the league, it's about not shutting down the run. You've got the rules are you've got to protect our quarterback and hurt the other guy's quarterback.
Yeah,
That's
and they
what the
don't have
game
it.
is. We have
Yeah,
we do
absolutely.
not have the linemen offensively.
They did draft the 2 linemen.
Okay.
But the problem is on defense is getting to the other quarterback, and they're not getting to him.
I agree, but even going back to the draft,
Tackle
okay, we
good.
got 2 offensive linemen. Tell me the rookie offensive lineman who changed a team's destiny.
I agree.
Not in year one.
Even our tackle, I'm a Saints fan. I'm just saying y'all in the collective are. Even Jake Matthews didn't do anything.
No.
I mean, he languished for the first
The
4 years.
offensive line is a techniques, experience position. It's not something that raw talent.
Yeah.
Where an offensive lineman, rookie, or linebacker can make a difference.
I agree with you. I think the Braves are going to have the best 2019 out of all 3. But I'm telling you, what the Hawks are doing is exciting. Travis Schlenk is building one hell of
I'll
a
give him
team.
credit.
These young guys, and it's exciting. And I'll tell you another thing. When I love going down to the Hawks, we go down to many times. I'll go down to David's seats right on the court, and there's just that's awesome to sit down there. But watching this young team play, there's talent there. They're building it the right way, and their payroll's down low. And what I think is going to happen is, I think we're going to eventually finally break through and get that one superstar free agent. And I know why that we haven't gotten up to this point. This is where all of them have their girlfriends are right here.
They don't want to live here.
They don't want to live here.
They don't want to
But
live
one
here.
guy, I'm telling you, one of these guys eventually is going to come here. And
However,
with that young talent, we're going to take off.
I think this year is a problem in that several of the higher talented free agents are injured.
Well,
They're not going to play next year.
No, it won't be this year.
The pool of what's available.
Yeah.
I mean, is Millsap available? Nice guy. He's not going to change the dynamics. He's a
Been there, done that.
solid player, and he couldn't turn around 5 years ago
Yeah.
when he was 5 years
we needed
younger.
a Kyrie or a KD, or
And they're not coming here.
If I could chip in here, though, I
Yep.
think you're absolutely right, Frank, because what Travis Schlenk's doing is like building a strong culture. When the coach did the same thing that Brett Brown did with the tanking Sixers teams, which is he took the guys
did.
courtside to playoff games that
Yep.
mattered. He took them to the Game 7 Philly Toronto game, and he said, "Look, Kevin Porter, look, Trae Young, look, John Collins. This is what it's going to look like when you guys are ready to be in big games." And players like Atlanta around the league, this is going to be eventually, I think, a free agent destination.
If
So
we
that's my-
can get past the girlfriend situation,
I'll tell you one other thing. Yes, but also this Atlanta is still not the launching pad for the side action career. LA is.
yeah, I agree.
New York
I agree.
is. Chicago,
But we're
maybe.
gonna be in a position where one guy could get us that run at the ring.
It's a
and like I
basketball
said,
team. One
yeah.
guy can change the dynamics. Yeah.
And I'll tell you something interesting. When Bazemore got traded yesterday, there's only one guy left from the 2015 team that went to the Eastern Finals, Bembry, and that's the only guy that's left. Travis Schlenk has done a hell of a job.
agree.
He said he was going to tear it down and build it up. He did it quicker than I thought he was going to do, and the young talent that he's gotten, he's literally made all the.
By the
right
way,
moves.
Evan Turner's a great quote. You guys are gonna like him when he's in town. He's a great quote. I'm a Celtics fan, so I'm familiar with Evan Turner.
Cool.
You're gonna like him.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think there's great times here. Again, if you can't have fun in this town,
No.
with all the sports and the entertainment and all the great food and all the great times out, you're going to miss out. Again, you've listened to The Good Life. This was our 4th broadcast. We want to thank, again, Daniel Milana, our producer. Again, Connor Evans, our...
Great addition.
Yeah, great addition. Young man, 20-year-old. I got a 20-year-old,
He's read
too.
some books.
He does, yeah.
He's listened to some music.
absolutely.
I'm very impressed.
Very whirly. Again, I want to thank my co-host, Mr. Ray Giudice
Thank
of
you.
Giudice Law. If you get in trouble, his number is the one to give a call. And I'm Frank Duffy, the owner of Duffy Realty. And again, if you have a house to sell, I can sell it, put a lot more coin back in your pocket. Sold 28,000 of them, and I guess I could do 28,001.
You got it.
Hey, y'all come on back next week to The Good Life.